One. They're still not very good. Well, with that, we'll call the meeting of the Camarillo Library Board to order. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Trustee Little.
Here.
Trustee Kildee.
Here.
Trustee Morgan. Here. President Pro Tem McDonald.
I'm here, thank you. Next item on the agenda would be the flag salute. Mr. Little, would you lead us tonight, please?
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any amendments to this agenda?
There are no amendments.
Anything from board members? Okay, if not, we move on to the item which would be public comments. I do not have any speaker sheets. Would anyone in the audience like to address the Camarillo Library Board? See no one come forward, we move on to the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The consent calendar consists of the minutes of the last meeting and an activities update. If there's no discussion, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes with Trustee Craven absent. We have no other departmental items. Comments from staff?
We don't have any comments.
Nothing today, okay. Comments from the library trustees?
No comments.
Nothing? All right, with that, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call the regular Camarillo Sanitary District for September 9th to order, and let the record reflect that all directors, less one, are present tonight. Any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments.
Public comments for the Cam San. Move right along to item 3, which is a consent calendar.
Move the approval of consent calendar.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 4-1 with 1 absent. Okay, that gets us down to comments from the staff. Any comments from the staff on SAN tonight?
No comments.
No? Okay, comments from the board members? Comments, nothing tonight. With that, we're adjourned.
We'll open the city council agenda. Let the record show that all members are present, other than Councilmember Craven, who is excused. And do we have any amendments to the agenda?
There's no amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, I would like to request that we pull item 3H, H as in Harry.
Okay, we'll put that under, I think, finance.
To finance?
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. First items are presentations. One is a Saving Lives Coalition community recognition. There's someone here to Why don't we have everyone come over here and we'll be there. How are you, sir? Good.
This is Karen. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Karen.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us what this is, Saving Lives is all about, and who you're presenting this to.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Honorable City Council members and City Manager. I think it's appropriate that I'm here today. Just yesterday we got news from the ONDCP that our coalition has been awarded another 5-year grant amongst another 697 coalitions around the country called the Drug Free Community Grant, which gives our community $625,000 towards prevention of drug and alcohol prevention amongst youth. So that was very special to hear that news. on a personal note, it's a Jewish New Year this Sunday night, Rosh Hashanah, so it's appropriate that we're starting a new 5-year cycle of drug prevention. So we're here today, first of all, to tell you that prevention does work. We're happy to have a Saving Lives youth force at Camarillo High School. We have also a Saving Lives youth force at Monte Vista Middle School. This October, we're going to be training all the middle school teachers of the Pleasant Valley School District about drug prevention. And I'm happy to have with me here our community director, Karen Olson. And we wanted to honor a few people that have helped us get to where we are today and make a difference. Our message to the parents: lock up your alcohol and drugs, make it a little more difficult for the kids to get their hands on it. And our message to the kids are, if you're not doing, you're part of the 90%. So it's called the Social Norms Campaign, where kids do what they think their peers are doing, and we go into the schools and remind them. We have this campaign called I'm part of the 88% that really most kids are not, even though some kids think that more are. And we're focusing on alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs. So the first award goes to a very special person who was at their first meeting in 2009, came to every meeting pretty much while he was with us on our board. And he's created a very strong connection with Saving Lives and the law enforcement. And it's our Chief, Steve DeCesare, in recognition of his pioneering leadership in establishing Saving Lives Camarillo Coalition. Good. Okay. Take a picture. Okay. Now we have on our board Chief Guy Stewart, and recently joining is our Captain Monica McGrath. So I think it's just part of it. If you become the commander of the police department, you're automatically on Saving Lives. No choice anymore. Okay, the next award goes to a very special individual, also from the beginning, was here with us. His name is Yossi Jacobowitz. He's a local businessman. In recognition of his pioneering leadership as the coalition's volunteer CFO, ensuring the coalition's fiscal excellence. He spent many, many hours with us for the great pay of $0 to...
He gets a plaque.
And I'm going to invite for the next two awards our community director, who's done a fabulous job under her leadership. We've really grown. She goes to every roundtable at the Pleasant Valley School District. She's wonderful, and we're so happy to have her. She has many years' experience with youth at risk. And one more thing is just to explain what the coalition is. We have monthly meetings, and we bring together law enforcement, parents, youth, as well as community members, just to work together on environmental prevention. We believe that it's the community's job to help the children. It's not just if you have kids that are probably at risk or possibly at risk, but everyone that lives here or works here has an obligation to look out for the best of our kids in town. So we want everyone to give a universal message that we're supporting them in their healthy choices. So here's Karen.
Thank you. Our next recipient is a member of the Counter Drug through the National Guard and has worked with us diligently almost from the beginning and works as the director of our parent task force. I'd like to welcome Tech Sergeant Isabel Savala. And lastly, and very importantly, we have our Student of the Year. I'd like to welcome Jaden Phillips. While she walks up, I'll tell you a little bit about her. She approached us after a fiesta a few years ago and said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And since then has created a youth task force, which is called SLY Force, Saving Lives Youth Force, which is in existence in Camarillo High School and now at Monte Vista. So we have a lot of thanks to give her, a student leader that she is. So Jaden, this is for you, as well as a check for a partial scholarship for your upcoming work at Irvine College. Thank you.
Before you leave, can we say something, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to go to 3 of those meetings, where they hold them, and they do work. They do put things together. One of the questions I had was when you talk about training the teachers and where was it? One of the high schools, Monte Vista and the high school. Do you also train them on how to recognize? Because I didn't know how to recognize when there's a problem. That's very important.
We do. We actually start with that, with who are at risk, why are they at risk, how can you identify them in the classroom,
That's it.
what are your resources that are available to you as a teacher, and also how to manage them in the classroom. So it's pretty comprehensive training.
Do another question real quick, because when I was probation officer for the county before I went to feds, I had kids, and you had to try to recognize if they're under the influence. Sometimes you can't easily do that, but you can look at things like eyes and a lot of other things, and you can pick it up pretty quick. Do you teach those kinds of techniques?
We teach those not only to the teachers, but also to parents.
Okay.
Because they're our first line of defense.
Perfect.
Any other questions from the council?
No, thank you.
I just want to say that as the mayor, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the citizens of this community to thank you for all your efforts in dealing with this. Drugs is a huge problem in this country, and we're not immune to the problem. And so it's gratifying that there are people like yourselves that are out there on the front lines trying to make sure that behavior doesn't change, or if there's bad behavior, that we somehow get help to these people. So thank you all, and God bless you all. Thank you. Okay. The next, we also have a presentation for National Preparedness Month for September. John? Why don't you come up here? Let's do it. Okay. And it's John Frazier. John, you want to tell us what this is all about?
Yeah. September is National Emergency Preparedness Month, and as we have this will be the 5th consecutive year, there's some flyers on the dais here and flyers in the back. On Saturday, September 26th, we have our Emergency Expo. It's a great event from 10 to 2 in the park right next to City Hall, Constitution Park. It's a free event, and this year's event is bigger and better than ever. We actually have a celebrity chef who's going to be there teaching emergency food rations, and everyone who showed, for the first 500 who show up, we have free solar cell phone chargers for them, and so we're encouraging everyone to take part in that. And also, as it turns out tonight, we have our latest class in the CERT program begins tonight, so I got to head over to the airport in a little bit and welcome them. We've had over, CERT is Community Emergency Response Team. We've had over 700 residents graduate through the program. It's a terrific program. It's a 6-week course, free. It's taught by firefighters of Ventura County Fire Department. It's funded by some of our Homeland Security money. And I'm very happy to say that the course tonight is full. Once again, it's been very popular. It's taught over at the airport. And it's a free course. Everyone ages 18 and up. A couple of our CERT grads self-mobilized during the fire in Camarillo Springs a couple years ago, so The program definitely teaches some valuable training. They give you a lot of good equipment, and in Camarillo, we also, everyone who goes gets one of these really hip, cool T-shirts, something those lesser cities around here won't provide. So we encourage that. And one more thing, I know even if you've tried to, you probably haven't been able to avoid hearing about El Nino. There's no doubt about it, this is officially an El Nino. The only question will be whether it's a wet or a dry one. If it is wet, it does have the potential to bring probably more rain than in 1998, so we're following that closely with the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services. But for everyone else in the community, we encourage at least 3 days of emergency supplies per household, including a gallon of water per person per day. And if you have any questions, you can just call us here at City 388-5349 or go to readyventuracounty.org, a great website. So that's it.
Okay, well, John, thank you very much. I remember 1999 and El Nino, and we were running around trying to find sandbags. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
All right, good job.
Okay, we'll go to the agenda. We have, next item is approval of the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval of consent calendar items less item H.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Please vote. Okay. All right, moving down the agenda, we have nothing from City Council. Finance, we have item H. Can we have a report on that, please?
This is annexation number 7 to the West Camarillo Community Facilities District number 1, or sometimes known as CFD number 1. As indicated in your agenda report, this is a annexation. It would have been covered under the streamlined process, which was defined in 1998 under the future annexation area to the district. However, there is a small portion of the property that is outside the future annexation area. So with that, it's caused this modified version, if you will. This would be the first step. It's the intention of the annexation. And then you do have later on tonight's agenda where we would call for a public hearing and then the actual balloting process at that time. We do have 2 consultants that assisted us with this process. Jeff Hamill from SDFA and Marianne Goodkind, our bond counsel, is here if you have any particular questions that they might address as well.
Let's see, I think you asked for the to be pulled, Councilman.
I did. One of the things that I was having a problem with in the agenda packet was determining exactly what parcels they were and where they are. The map is, needless to say, quite generic here, and so that was one of my questions, is exactly what parcels are we talking about, and which ones are the exceptions that are outside the area?
See, Tom?
I don't see a map that tells me that, so
It's not very defined.
yeah, as I say, it's just got a few little lines, yeah.
I agree with her. This was kind of hard to distinguish what parts we're talking about on that map.
Can I ask either Jeff or Tally, perhaps, if you could assist us with defining that area?
Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor Little.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Jeff Hamill with Special District Financing. We're the special tax consultants that prepared the annexation report in your packet this evening. Yes, this map is just renders the parcel numbers that are currently in effect, and that's what we'll have to, presuming a successful annexation, that's what we'll record it against. But it's essentially the Springville tracts that were approved, I think, in December of 2014 and in earlier this year in March that are represented by this property. There was a little piece of property right adjacent to the 101 that was not included in this territory for future annexation, and so I think that's the portion that is that Mr. Campbell was mentioning is not within this map that was adopted 8 years ago.
It looks like that. Excuse me.
I was going to say, is this the Ellicor tract and proposed tract and one under grading at this point in time, as well as the parcel that housed the low and moderate income properties?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes, Your Honor. This is the Ellicora tract, phases 1, 2, and 3. It also encompasses the affordable housing as well as the condo tract that recently came before you. It's between Amley and what will be the extension of Earl Joseph Drive. So it is all of Ellicora and what they're grading right now.
Okay. Hey,
So it's all north of the freeway.
North of the freeway, between Ponderosa and the freeway, correct.
It looks kind of like where the berms are.
what-
The
That
berm
long-
is on the south side of the property,
Yeah.
and so that what you see in there is the existing assessor parcel numbers prior to the recording of the map.
Okay.
okay, any other questions?
No problem.
All right. Is there,
I'll move the approval of item H on consent.
Second.
moved and seconded, any discussion? Not, please vote.
Hard time with it.
You brought it up before I did.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilmember McDonald voting no.
I don't think that adds up.
3-1.
How about 3-1?
3 to
Oh,
1.
I'm sorry, 3-1. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Next item is under City Manager, League of California 2015 Annual Conference Resolutions.
Yeah, Mr. Roger Pichardo has a report for you on this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The item before you tonight is regarding the League of California Cities 2015 Annual Conference Resolutions. Tonight, the City Council is being asked to provide voting direction on 4 annual conference resolutions scheduled for the League business meeting, which begins September 30th and runs through October 2nd. A little bit of background. League resolutions may originate from city officials, city councils, regional divisions, functional departments, policy committees, or the League board, or by including in a petition signed by designated voting delegates of 10% of the member cities. This year, 4 resolutions are being presented at the League conference. The first resolution is a amendment to the bylaws. The second resolution, which I will provide an overview of, is overconcentration of alcohol and drug treatment facilities, residential rentals, and compensation for prolonged electrical power outages. The League encourages the city to determine a position so that the city's voting delegate can represent the city's position on each resolution. The first resolution is essentially seeks to amend the League bylaws to streamline the succession process when filling a vacancy for the office of President of the Board of Directors. The amendment would allow the immediate past president to fill an unexpected vacancy in the office of President for the remainder of the vacating president's term. This would require a 2/3 vote of the General Assembly. The past few years have yielded several occasions where the succession line for Board of Directors leadership was disrupted due to election results and officers taking office outside of city government. The nature of this resolution is to ensure that there is a smooth succession process in place and that current vice presidents, first and second, have adequate time to prepare for their roles as president. By allowing the immediate past president to finish out the term of a vacated presidency, the board would ensure there is minimal disruption to the workflow and goals of the association. Under existing City Council Policy 2.02, Legislation and Legislative Matters, the legislative platform does not address the League of California City bylaws. However, because the city is a member of the League, it would be appropriate for the council to consider supporting this resolution. Staff's recommendation for this resolution is to support. Moving on to the subsequent resolution, which calls for the governor and the legislature to work with the League and other stakeholders to explore options to address overconcentration of alcohol and drug abuse recovery and treatment facilities in residential neighborhoods. The City of Malibu is sponsoring this resolution as a way of highlighting an issue that continues to create zoning and land use complications in single-family neighborhoods. This resolution is consistent with City Council Policy 2.02 in that it would help strengthen the city's ability to address overconcentration of such facilities in residential neighborhoods. Staff's recommendation is support. The third resolution deals with residential rentals. This resolution seeks to highlight and increase support for Senate Bill 593. The League is currently in support of this legislation. I might add that in your staff report, it indicates that the bill, SB 593, is pending in the legislature. This particular bill is currently in an inactive file, which essentially means that it will be taken up in the next year. So for the moment, the bill is pretty much dead. The City of West Hollywood and other cities are sponsoring the resolution as part of an effort to expand awareness of the issue among cities and to galvanize support for Senate Bill 593. The cities view legislation as a helpful tool to bolster local efforts to appropriately regulate a growing vacation rental industry. This particular resolution is consistent with City Council policy in that it would bolster local efforts to effectively regulate land use impacts and collect applicable taxes from transient residential rentals. Staff's recommendation is to support. And the fourth resolution calls upon the governor and the legislature to work with the League of California Cities to enact legislation to otherwise compel Southern California Edison to create a program to automatically provide direct compensation to its customers affected by a prolonged electrical power outage under specified circumstances. These types of outages that we're talking about can adversely affect residents who have physical challenges and rely on constant source of power for medical devices, residents who are senior citizens and are particularly prone to injury if electrical power outages persist for an extended period of time, and residents who suffer financial burdens as a result of losing food, medication, and other perishable items during prolonged power outages. Under the existing policy, the legislative platform does not address principles related to prolonged power outages or compensating customers for damages incurred during a prolonged power outage. However, it would be appropriate for the council to consider supporting this resolution as it would help an effort to provide reasonable compensation to customers within Southern California Edison's service area for losses incurred due to prolonged service disruptions. Staff's recommendation is to support this resolution, and the suggested action for tonight is to provide voting direction on the League of California's Cities Annual Conference resolutions. May I make you aware as well that these particular resolutions have to be voted on individually.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions of the staff?
Do we personally here have to vote them individually or there individually?
We'll hear, and then the voting delegate will vote.
We will take them up individually then.
Okay.
I have a question about this last one, about Edison. Seems to me that there's some, this could really lead to some, what if somebody says, well, the power is out for 5 hours, and I work from my home with a computer, and therefore I've lost business, and I want $200,000 because I couldn't trade that day or whatever on the stock exchange. And it seems to me that that opens a lot of challenges for the electric companies, and ultimately the rest of us are going to pay for it. So, do you have any?
This particular resolution does not delve into those particular matters. I think the main concern here is to, address the items that I pretty much talked about, and with regards to seniors, individuals who are on medication. A perfect example would be today. It's a very hot day. You might experience some power outages, and individuals are going to go without power. Let's say a particular area within the city loses power for an extended period of time. There is a process in place now, and I'm not exactly sure of the period of time where persons can complete a form to seek reimbursement for example, such items as, that go bad in their refrigerator. And it's not a particularly, it can be a very onerous process, let's just put it that way.
Does this apply to natural disasters that take out the Edison infrastructure?
No, it doesn't address those as far as I can see.
Okay.
I kind of agree with Bill on some of that because, like you say, natural disaster could happen beyond their control that takes out a few power stations or floods, potential floods. It could take out some things. And not their fault, but it affected people. Those kind of natural things, I would think, got to be some sort of definition in this thing that separates some of this stuff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think natural disasters are a separate matter. I think those are handled differently.
But is that in this?
If I could add a little bit, there is quite a bit of structure in the proposed resolution, and I'll give you an example. There's really one of the operative term is prolonged outage. So one of the first measures is at 24 hours. There's another cutoff at 48 hours, and there's a specific dollar amount. For example, I believe the proposed resolution has a $30 credit for a 24-hour outage. There's, I think, a $60 to $90 credit for a 48-hour outage. And it does address storms, because storms do cause outages, typically with the wind especially. So there's some structure to the ordinance. Nowadays with inflation, $30 to $60 to $90 isn't going to buy you a whole heck of a lot. But I would imagine, like anything else, to get the votes necessary to put a new program in place, if it's merited, as a starting point, and it may evolve over time to something that is a little more substantive financially in terms of damage reimbursement. So there is some structure in here.
So there's more detail than we're getting.
Yes.
Okay.
And when
cover some of those things that are like to hear.
Yes.
Well, to me, just from my standpoint, it's again the attempt to try to, protect everybody from everything that might conceivably happen to them. And I just think it's a little overreaching. So, okay, we have to have these on an individual vote basis. You say?
Are we going to talk about each one as we go, or are we going to talk more
I think
about?
we could do that.
We could.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's open it and start talking about the first one, which is simply basically a housekeeping bylaws change for the League of Cities that would allow if there was a vacancy in the office of the president, the previous president who had served the league would step in. So,
I move to approve that first one.
okay.
I second that.
All right. You want to call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Want us to vote?
Want us to vote?
Just vote.
Oh, okay. Well, that carries 4-0. And number 2 is over concentration of alcohol and drug treatment facilities in the city.
I move to vote yes on that item.
I
Second.
would second. Is that a motion?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Second that.
Motion and second. Please vote. That carries 4-0. Residential rentals. We didn't talk much about that. Is there any questions about that?
I don't have a problem with this.
Essentially, what this is doing is basically turning residential neighborhoods into commercial, like motels and B&Bs.
So I would, Your Honor, move that we vote yes on this item.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Please vote. That passes 4-0. And finally, the one we have talked
Your
about.
Honor, this is a tougher one for me.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things about this one, too. So.
I don't think I'm comfortable to vote for it.
Let me ask a question. It appears to me that they're really trying to get Edison to, improve their infrastructure by this. Is that technically what the bill is trying to do here with that? It's kind of another way of trying to get Edison to upgrade their, which I think we're all in favor of course. It's kind of a unusual way to do this, but is there, if, you know, I mean, a lot of our residents have been, you know, impacted by this too.
I think it's a combination of, if you have a power outage, to incentivize Edison to respond in a service manner, in a timely manner, to fix the outage problem. So I think in the longer run, the infrastructure weaknesses would be corrected so that the outage doesn't occur, it'd be prevented. But in the meantime, while they're improving their infrastructure, they want the service from Edison, when there is an outage, to be timely, whether it be from a storm, whether it be from an overload, like on a hot day like today or this week. So it's really about getting the restoration of power back in place, and fees to go with that.
Maybe I can ask a question of staff, and maybe council can answer it as well. How has their response time been to this? Now, obviously, a lot of times it takes them a lot longer to get the power back up and running. But have we had an issue with their response time in at least addressing the issue that anybody's aware of?
I don't, you know, they have complete control now when there's an outage, depending upon what resources they have available to correct the outage. It's completely up to Edison. And I'm sure they do the best they can. I think there's other folks that might feel they can do better if they were given a penalty or incentive, financial incentive to maybe work faster, or ultimately improve the infrastructure.
Can I ask one question that pertains to what Kevin's leading to? Have we had any 24-hour, I haven't seen any 24-hour outages by Edison here in town. I've seen 12, 8, whatever, but I've never seen 24-hour outages. Have you? Anyone?
I think there's been close to that.
24-hour outages. Yeah, but there's a limit we're talking about, what they're saying.
I can tell you that I had it's been about 3 or 4 years ago, we had about 14 hours, something like that.
I thought it was even longer, because I think it was
might have been 18 hours. A transformer blew on right at the curve of Santa Rosa Road, or Upland Road, leading down to Santa Rosa Road. And they not only had to replace that, which was a very large transformer, but also had to do a lot of underground work to repair the damage. So,
well,
that was about 18 hours. That's the only one I can
They've got that 24 thing that get punished after 24 hours, you know, this money. Mm-hmm. And so I just don't remember them having that long of shortages. The other thing, too, is if they have a shortage and they need more electricity fast, if you haven't gone to the Edison plant up in the Edison Lake area, within 15 minutes they up the power and send it to wherever they have to go where it's short. So it's a 15-minute thing. You can't believe how fast that works and how much energy comes back in the area. But they start pumping more energy out of that plant down here.
Well, is there a motion to...
Can I say a couple things?
Oh, sure.
I have a hard time with this. One, I think we, and particularly in municipal government, this is a slippery slope here. So what are they going to do when you do this to Edison? Then pretty soon your water and your public works and anybody who serves the community is going to be penalized if you don't meet this. I mean, you could keep going here. What else bothers me about this is it's automatic. So I'm out of town for a week, and while I'm gone, the electricity goes off. I had no damage, nothing happened. Didn't affect me, but I automatically get a check. So are you really meeting a cause? It's that automatic clause to me. And it doesn't say automatic to seniors or to those who have health issues. It says automatic to everybody. And I think somebody said it earlier, who's going to pay for it? Well, pretty soon, if it happens, you know, the ratepayers pay for it. So I just have a real problem with this one. I think we're opening a can of worms. If they want Edison to improve their structures, then they ought to do that. But this idea of penalizing you for missing an appointment or being a little outside the window, I just hate to see us go there, because pretty soon it'll be us next.
I feel the same way.
I think that's a very good point. Both of those were very good points you made. Particularly, we could be We could be, the next one's being told we have to pay this and that and the other thing. So,
And life happens, if they were maliciously doing it or something. But, it's like the one Bill was talking about that was close to our neighborhood. That was a major undertaking that they had to go through to fix that. It wasn't that they were just sitting around looking and trying to decide what to do. It just took a while to get that equipment in there and get it fixed. So,
we had to use cranes to do it.
yeah.
Like you say, there hasn't been that lengthy of a, days, no. I don't know of any of them. So they've done what they've had to do and got it finished.
So after all that, I can't support this one. So.
Would the recommendation be that we remain neutral, or we don't support it, or?
I would vote no on it if.
Oppose?
So
I would oppose it.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to, is that your motion, Chan?
Oh, I will make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we vote no on the resolution.
Someone's got to pay for it. Like you
Please-
said, someone's
please
got to pay
vote.
for it.
So that's a vote no. And I believe, Your Honor, you are the voting member this year, so if you have that opportunity to make our points before the
I'll be more
body,
than happy to do that.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm planning to stay over for that.
It's easier now. They have it at lunch
easier
instead
now.
of at the end.
I haven't seen anyone that says, I'm really ready to go on this one.
We'll stay and support you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Okay, let's see, that takes us down to closed sessions.
Did you want me to announce now or
Sure, that'd be
after
great.
comments?
I don't see anything beyond that to,
Well, you got new business.
in fact,
You just have you have new business if you wanted to cover that.
we could cover new business, that's right. Okay, you want a city manager,
I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
city attorney?
I have no items.
Okay. We'll start with city council.
Here's my
Councilmember
list.
Kildee.
Yes, I was watching a channel the other night, and it was kind of interesting. The city of Burbank has a program where actually I would have to do some more research, and maybe staff can research a little bit. I believe it's once a month. If you're a resident of the city of Burbank, you can actually go out to the sand plant and get some reclaimed water. You have to provide your own buckets and that, but I think it's once a month. They go out to the sand plant and they can get X amount of gallons of reclaimed water at a reasonable charge, and they can either take it home and wash their cars with it, water their plants, whatever they can do, providing they do have to sign a waiver that they won't drink it. But it was kind of interesting, and I know we're working on that with our sand plant out there, and I was wondering,
It was interesting. I saw.
it is very interesting, and if there's any potential perhaps for us to at least look into the feasibility of that. Yeah. Tom, do you have?
Yeah, good comment. I don't have any response at this point, but certainly we'll look into what they're doing and evaluate what opportunities there might be for us to help the community.
Okay. And also, I had some interested citizens talk about, I believe they call it a HERO program, and I'm not real super familiar with that, but apparently it's a program where they have a fund of money and homeowners can go and maybe get some low-cost loans, I believe, to update. I guess Mr. Dave has some.
This item will be on your next agenda.
Okay, well, there we go. How about that, huh? Once again, Dave's right on top of it there, I'm telling you. And then we've got, Tom, the sign of the, I believe it's the Water Protection Agency out here on Ponderosa. Are they going to be doing some more work on, is it the channel out there? Will there be any work on Ponderosa? The channel going to be?
No, there is not a project scheduled to do any changes to the channel as far as construction. From time to time, they do come through, and this is the time of year where we do clean our channels out in anticipation of the upcoming potential rainy season, and it could be that. I'd have to look into specifically where the sign is. I haven't seen it personally to know what it might be referencing, but from what you're describing, it sounds like that's probably what it is just cleaning out the channels.
And also, I received, this in the mail, the solutions to an epic drought, and I just want to tell staff, I believe that they did a very good job with this. It's very informative, and I'm going to get some. I've been handing some out because I think it's important for us to do the best job we can to get, in an ever-changing world, as much out that we're doing on this. So I want to give staff and council and anybody else that had anything to do with this, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, that was a very good flyer, and people have reminded me of it too. Mike?
Just a few. First of all, went to the farewell. You were not, I don't think you were at the farewell because you were gone, or were you at the farewell for Locker?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Bill and I were at the farewell party for Locker, and it was very good. Good community turnout to give him, a goodbye and farewell and all that stuff. And I know he'll stay involved in a lot of things in the community, so that was a good event. Went to the backyard patio cellar. It's another one of our, what would you call it, wineries, little wineries, small wineries. That's over off Flynn Road. And their wine is excellent. They give you little tastes of the wine. And so small, but it can grow. Battery Biz. Bill and I went to a business visit at Battery Biz, and at first we weren't sure they're still open. We sat out front for probably 15, 20 minutes waiting to get in. But finally they came and got us, and I think, well, he's not here. Fraser's not here. But it was a good meeting with them. And it looks like they're going to be expanding in the future to me. Don's and Donia's. The Don's and Donia's had a great turnout. That was the biggest one I think I've seen in a long time. A lot of people in town, their former Don's and Donia's are all there, and it's a great presentation. Jimmy John's, ribbon cutting at Jimmy John's. That's like going to, what do you call that place? Starbucks. Not Starbucks. What do you call it thing? You get your sandwiches. Subways. I can get it out. It's like going to a Subway. Very similar. Very good stuff. And it's over by the movie theater. So being that close to the high school, I'm sure they're going to get some people coming through. A&W, the AWA meeting. Very good meeting. And there's something coming up that I think I've given to our city manager about a couple of things that city staff might want to go to. It's kind of training. It's every month it has this training thing that more is for staff than us. And it gives you all the latest updates and things that goes on. So it'd be, I think, worthwhile to go in a couple of those and see what they're like. We've been to those, have we not, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And then we have a meeting coming up, at the Reagan Library. And I think 27th. Those that can make it, 27th. If we can make it, because it's going to be a very good event. We have a speaker that's, the governor might be there. We're waiting to the last minute. We were going to cancel him and have this other person that we referred to them as a great speaker at the league, or at CASA. But the governor's secretary said, no, don't cancel him yet, because he does this a lot, and the last minute he goes. So we're sitting here waiting to see if the governor's going to be there. And so if he's there, it might be worth everyone going to, to that meeting, especially that presentation, water presentation. Chili cook-off, very successful. That was the bands were fantastic. It's just as hot. Why things are going this hot weather like this is crazy. But it was a very good event, and the crowd seemed to have a lot of fun. And I think that hospice made some money for themselves. That's it, Your Honor.
Can I ask? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Go ahead. Jan, there's a couple things. I did attend a VRSD meeting and a utilities meeting. And also, Tom, I know you've talked about this, but the Central Avenue Bridge, it's getting my attention with, shall we say, the unevenness of the road. Are we still, I know it's a Caltrans situation, are we still in conversation with them about maybe?
Well, yes, we are in conversation and obviously not making much progress, but what we have done in the meantime to at least help the situation a little is there was, right up to the Caltrans limit line where it's still our road, we did some remediation to fill in potholes and at least do what we can to reduce the amount of rough road that's out there. And we have even made an offer to Caltrans that if we can move forward with the project there, we would pave it, but we just haven't been able to get conclusion to that.
Tom, Your Honor, can I follow up with that just a little bit, since it's that area? I had brought this up once before in Del Norte Mobile Home Park. At nighttime, if you're going to go out there at nighttime, have you tried that and see how it's kind of confusing sometimes when you try to turn into their place and coming down, and people don't stop when it says 40 in that area. They're going 45 or more, and so it's one of those things I think we need to look at and see if there needs to be new, the markers, the bot dots or something replaced out there.
Yes, I do remember when you brought it up, and we actually went out and met with the mobile home park representatives, and there was some additional markers put out as a result of that. So I'm not sure if you're referring to need to look at it again, or you just, well, we can look at it if there's something specifically more that you want us to, if you can help us.
I went through that the other night, Tom, coming back from a place, and I said, now if my eyes aren't that good,
yeah.
How is this going to affect me coming through here?
I'd be happy to. Maybe we can meet later and you can get more specific to show us where we might have missed when we met with the mobile home park.
Okay, good.
Councilmember McDonald.
Certainly. Yesterday, we had the last meeting of the policy committee for the JLU study, which is the Joint Land Use Study with Naval Base Ventura County. They've produced, this is called the executive summary, which is only 20 pages long. One volume's this big, and the next volume's about that big, reduced down to this. So hopefully it's a tool that can be used. They will be coming and requesting an agenda item so that they can present a lot of the report to all the cities in the county that are involved. Obviously, not every city in Ventura County is as affected by it, so it would be Camarillo, Oxnard, Port Hueneme specifically. So you'll have the opportunity to hear about it, ask questions, and then, of course, like anything else, it's how is it implemented and how do we use it in the future that's going to be the real test of time. It is not a law. There is no requirement that this be done. It's just guidelines and gathering information as a guide to the future. So it's something we need to remember and think about as we move forward. I just want to mention to everybody that on Saturday we have the last concert of the season, and for those of you who need your yearly dose of Elvis, he'll be in the park. So summer is not officially over in Camarillo until Elvis has left the park. So hope to see you out there on Saturday night at 7:30.
And we workers there can take a break.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, well, I attended that land use community presentation they had at the library. It was very interesting. And it was probably the only meeting I went to that Mike wasn't there too. So I did all the things that Mike did. And I did give Bill Locker a certificate. I think he's done a terrific job for that organization, having been a member of that board for some 10 or 12 years, a number of years ago. It's always an issue to get enough money to really do the job that needs to be done, and he's been able to do that, so he's to be commended. The other thing I did attend was with Kevin is the Utilities Committee. The one thing I like to, I got a letter from the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. Maybe we could have some report on this. It's notification of initiation of groundwater sustainability development process. And basically it talks about the Groundwater Management Agency, Fox Canyon, is initiating process for developing the groundwater sustainability for the Arroyo, Santa Rosa Valley, East, West, and South, the Las Posas Valley, the Oxnard Forebay, the Oxnard Plain, and Pleasant Valley basins that are within the boundaries. And so I know we've talked about this, but I think it might be good to have just a brief summary as to what they're trying to do and how it may impact us as a user, or as having them as the groundwater agency for us, for our city.
Yeah. Your Honor, maybe I can clarify. As you recall, Camarosa oversees that basin, and that's been within their service area, but now because of the new legislation, the county was considering getting involved in helping develop a plan to oversee that basin, and then because it's affecting our residents in Camarillo, we threw our hat in the ring too to be potentially involved in the governance of that process. That's as far as it's gone to date, but what that notice is the county is reaching out with an MOU that we'll be bringing to you in October for your consideration, where it's basically saying the three agencies, Camarosa, the city, and the county, will work together to develop a plan.
Good. All right. I think that's all the information I need. I have no other items. Is there any reason not to? We need to have a city attorney read the closed session.
Yes. During the 6 to 7:30 session, we may cover one or more of these closed session items. We have two real property negotiation items. The authority on both is Government Code Section 54956.8. One of the properties is the former fire station. The negotiators and negotiating parties and items under negotiation are listed in the agenda. And the other property is the former library, and those items are also listed in the agenda. And then the final closed session items are anticipated litigation conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Number of cases is 5.
All right. If there's nothing else to come before the council, we will stand in recess till 7:30. Call meeting of the City Council of Camarillo to order. We'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Councilmember McDonald.
Here.
Vice Mayor Morgan.
Here.
Mayor Little.
Here. Vice Mayor Morgan, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Could everyone please stand? Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments.
Several presentations tonight, and we'll start with the California Coastal Cleanup on September 19th.
Good evening, City Council and City staff. My name is Anita Coleman. I'm with the City of Camarillo Public Works Department, Stormwater Program Manager, and I'm here to talk to you about California Coastal Cleanup Day this year. First of all, I want to thank the Council and staff for allowing us to participate again in the event. We have two sites that we're going to be holding on September 19th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. The pictures that are in this presentation are from our two Camarillo locations from last year. Last year, in 2014, at the two locations, we had almost 700 volunteers remove, almost 300 volunteers remove 700 pounds of debris. The number one item that we pick up has always been the food wrappers and containers at the Camarillo locations. Our 5-year history, we average about 100 volunteers per site each year, and we really don't hit the 1,000 mark on the pounds of debris removed, which is a good thing. Countywide, we had over 3,000 volunteers pick up almost 10,000 pounds of trash and recyclables at about 22 sites countywide. Through the state of California, we had almost 70,000 volunteers pick up 1.2 million pounds, and throughout the United States on the same day, over 209,000 volunteers picked up 4.2 million pounds of debris. The number one item that we're finding throughout California and the United States are cigarette butts. And then worldwide, this event is held throughout the world on the same day every year, the third Saturday in September. We had over 500,000 volunteers pick up 16,000 pounds of trash. And again, cigarette butts tops the list as the number one item picked up. So we are holding the event again at the Mission Oaks Park Barranca, which is off of Mission Oaks Park by the tennis courts, and we clean up the area below. We meet at Oak Canyon and Mission Oaks Boulevard, and then we're also cleaning up Cayugas Creek, and we meet at the corner of Creekside and Paseo del Campo. And these are a few pictures again from last year's event. We provide the volunteers with bags, bottles, and gloves, but we are encouraging people to bring their own because we're trying to make it a zero waste event. And why? Because we do want to make trash extinct so we don't have these non-native species of California showing up in our beaches and our creeks. Again, the event's Saturday, September 19th from 9 a.m. to about noon. We have our 2 locations in Camarillo, and people can call me at the phone number listed, 383-5659. Or if they want to go to one of the 22 sites countywide, they can go to vccoastcleanup.org, and they can get a whole list of all the beaches and the waterways that we're cleaning up. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question. Yeah, and Anita, is that the picture that's on the T-shirt this year?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The SOS.
Yeah. That's they get a T-shirt, right? If they
Yes, our volunteers, it's kind of first come, first serve. We have about 2,000 T-shirts countywide, and we have about 3,000 volunteers turn out. But we will be providing a T-shirt with this picture on it, thanking the volunteers.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I've done it a couple times, but if you do it in the riverbed and it's going to be as hot as it's been, you better bring a lot of water for those folks because it'll be a tough one down there.
We are stocking up, and fortunately, one of the sponsors, Crystal Geyser, provides most of the water for the event throughout the state of California. But we are going to have extra water
Down
on
there.
hand.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I assume the volunteers have a choice of going in our city, going to one location or another.
Yes, we encourage either one. The location off of Mission Oaks Park is more suitable for smaller children. It's more of a trail, whereas Cayugas Creek is thick sand that you have to walk through.
And older people in the Barranca too.
Okay.
Because you're walking in the sand and hot. Yes.
Yes. Mission Oaks, of course, has trees. The Cayugas Creek is pretty open.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you for taking this on as a assignment. It's always a successful one. We
This
appreciate
is
your
always
work.
one of my favorite things I get to do for the city. So thank you for letting us
Thank
do
you,
it.
Anita. Okay, we have the next presentation is from the Friends of the Channel Islands Energy Choices. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Mayor Kildee, honorable council members, I'm Angus Simmons. I'm a resident of Camarillo. I'd like to introduce my colleague Rick Gardner, who is also a resident of Camarillo and a former Navy employee where he was an environmental engineer and has also run his own consulting firm. And Chuck Cronin, who is a resident of Ventura and also an energy expert who's worked all around the country and in Ventura. And I'd like to thank you for letting us make this presentation, which is relevant because the county supervisors in Ventura and Santa Barbara have voted funds to do a technical study of the application of community choice energy in our 2 counties. So I'd like to ask Rick Gardner to start, Chuck to go second, and I'll finish up. And we'll go through these slides and try to finish up as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to just kind of do a little primer on community choice energy, and then I'll let Chuck and Angus finish it up. So community choice energy, some people call it community choice aggregation, is authorized by Assembly Bill 117 in the year 2002. California is one of 6 states that has this. It actually began in Massachusetts, spread across the country, but California is probably the most active community state doing this. 4 other states are considering it. Basically, in a nutshell, the Assembly Bill allows communities to pool their electricity demand, and allows them to then go and take this to purchase and potentially develop power for the residents, businesses, and municipal facilities. So how does it work? Community Choice Energy leverages the market power of group purchasing. Basically, you get the government more involved in energy than they have been to date. And they work in a partnership with investor-owned utilities. In our case, we're talking about Southern California Edison. So the local governments procure power on behalf of the customers within their borders. So if you look at that picture at the bottom there, we've got basically electricity or electrical systems consist of three basic elements. You got the source, that's where the energy is being generated. It might be fossil fuel power plants, natural gas or oil. It may be solar, maybe hydroelectric, geothermal, wind. And all those put electrons into the electrical grid. And then Southern California Edison, through their transmission lines, delivers that power to the customer. So right now, the way it works is, this is all Southern California Edison. They're buying the power through power purchase agreements, then they're delivering it, then they're billing the customer. What Community Choice Energy does is it puts government right in there. It puts the community in as the power purchaser. So now we become the ones, and we're using the term Channel Islands Energy Choice as a possible name, but it's basically a governmental entity, counties, municipalities, whoever comes in, they become the source, they buy the power, they can decide about whether it will be renewable, the fossil fuel, whatever sources. Edison still delivers through their transmission lines, and the customers still billed by Edison. So now to go into a little bit more depth, Marin Clean Energy in Marin County is actually the first community choice program in the state of California. So Marin Clean Energy is what they call their organization. And this is a typical energy bill that people receive. So they actually still receive bill from the utility. In this case, it's PG&E. Pacific Gas and Electric is the utility for Northern California, Marin County. And so PG&E will bill the customer. If you look at those yellow boxes there, the first shows PG&E electric delivery charges. That's the money that PG&E actually retains to operate the distribution system. If you look at the next column, MCE, Marin Clean Energy, that's the charges for their electrical generation to buy the power. And so basically this goes through a implementation plan through the California Public Utilities Commission, and everybody's made whole. PG&E has all the money it needs to do its operation, and then Marin Clean Energy gets the money it needs to purchase power. Now, the beauty of this is so far people have been saving, the utility bills have typically been about 5% lower than the full, investor-owned utility bills, and there's been a higher percentage of renewables. If you did want to choose, normally in this energy statement, if you look there, it says deep green. This person actually opted to pay $5 more a month, and for that, they're going 100% renewable. So this is actually a bill for 100% renewable. Typically, there would be 30-some-odd% renewable under Marin Clean Energy. So Channel Islands Energy Choice, what would be the potential scope? If you look here, these are electric investor-owned utilities. There's PG&E, Central Northern California, SCE, Edison, and their area right in there. If we focus on Santa Barbara and Ventura County, you'll notice that Santa Barbara County is split between PG&E, up here in yellow, and Edison. So the city of Santa Barbara and communities to the south are part of Edison. We in Ventura County are all Edison. LA, Malibu area, that's Edison. So what you might, again, this would depend on how it works out, but if you look at that blue border, for instance, could be the boundary for this entity we would call Channel Islands Energy Choice. But again, it depends on the various agreements and how it works out. So I'm going to now turn it over to Chuck Cronin.
Thank you, Rick. I'm a business person. I think in terms of this type of opportunity for community energy as a business proposition and a business enabler for the communities that opt in. Keep in mind, a city either has the option to join or not join. You can keep the status quo the way it is, or you can opt for some pretty progressive changes. What I want to talk about first are the advantages of choice. First of all, it's the cost of the power that's aggregated. It's the rates and tiers for your constituents. Most people start with the Southern California Edison tiers and then migrate beyond those, so there's a good rate comparison. The other thing that the community choice energy entity would control is the amount of incentives, the programs for energy efficiency, the programs for distributed generation and demand response. In addition to that, you talk about the location of the energy jobs in your community. Rather than putting a very large renewable out in the desert someplace, you could have your community populated with energy projects on rooftops, in brownfields like the Camarillo Airport, and places such as that, driving local jobs and local employment. You also have access to the actual demand and projections of the energy needs. Having been involved in a number of projects in California, understanding what the real growth patterns are within your particular community so you can locate projects and avoid new distribution lines, perhaps even avoid power plants is a pretty important thing. But that all starts with understanding the data that you have. You also have access and the ability, Ventura County pays in some $40 million a year to the state in an energy efficiency fund. It's in all your bills, anywhere from $7 to $13 a month. While you have access to that $40 million, I can tell you that a very small amount of that today is spent in Ventura County. So in addition to that, I'm going to click to what would that mean to Camarillo and Ventura County? Well, you now would have control over the rate that you charge for your residents and your businesses. Most of these programs start out with a small decrease of 5 to 8%, but for most people, that's a pretty significant number. Rather than, you have to keep in mind that in the past, you would have been looking at a rate increase of anywhere from 3 to 5%. You also have access to that $40 million in the county for the Energy Efficiency Fund. You're able to migrate your energy purchases more and more to in-state and to local sources. Again, that means jobs in your community, and that means tax revenue to the city. You're also able to renew some stranded assets that you have out there. For instance, today, Channel Islands University, CSUCI, is struggling to get its power purchase agreement renewed with Edison. A CCA could get that done in a short series of meetings. The same thing could be true of Howlings Nursery. Now, they have a recent PPA, but there's no guarantee that that would be renewed. It also gives you the ability to put projects on brownfield sites. The most notable one you have is the Camarillo Airport, which would be a perfect site for solar and some other projects. And it allows you to, how can I say this, get it approved quickly. Having been involved with projects, in some cases the average approval time with an Edison project could be anywhere from 8 to 10 years. It's a much faster planning cycle. I know you think it takes some time in the city, but it doesn't take 8 to 10 years. And you also have the ability now to combine both water conservation and energy conservation under the same mantle in conjunction with your water district. And lastly, you can understand where the power needs are and avoid land use conflicts that are very common when you start to site new power plants, peaker plants, and distribution lines. So that's what it could mean to Ventura County and to the city of Camarillo.
Thank you. So I'd like to focus my remarks on a quick history of the three CCEs that are operating in the here and now, Marin Clean Energy, Sonoma Clean Power, and Lancaster Choice Energy. And a lot of other jurisdictions up and down the state are also looking at these. They all operate basically the same way as you've heard, and they use their revenue streams from ratepayers to fund their power purchases under power purchasing agreements of 3 to 25 years. They can also set aside funds from those revenue streams to invest in local energy projects. As JPAs, they could also have bonding authority, although I'm not aware of a case of one using one. And they also trade in renewable energy certificates, which are traded in California and nationally. And all of these sources of power for the community have to be submitted before the Public Utilities Commission because, as a matter of prudence, serving ratepayers has to pencil out, everything has to balance, and we have to be sure that, that the ratepayers will get what they've paid for. So the earliest CCE was Marin Clean Energy, set up in 2010. Oh, thanks, Rick. It now has actually 170,000 customers. These things are changing all the time, and 80% of customers in Marin and Richmond decided to opt into MCE. That number's gone up as unincorporated Napa across the bay, Bernicia, El Cerrito, and San Pablo, all looking at this, decided that they would like to opt in. MCE has recently celebrated its 5th anniversary, beating incumbent utility rates with higher renewable portfolio percentages. I want to say also that customers have the opportunity to opt out under the statute and under the implementing regulations. So they actually get 4 opportunities to opt out if they don't like what's being presented, and they can remain with the incumbent utility. The incumbent utility also maintains the grid, so they are responsible for pole and line maintenance, even for customers who are with MCE. And the kinds of projects that have been brought on since MCE was set up are very interesting. You see San Rafael Airport, which has solar panels on all of its hangars, producing a megawatt of energy. There's biogas projects. There's solar on top of landfills. They've recently done a 10.5 megawatt project on a brownfield Chevron site. They've done PPAs, power purchasing agreements, with wind providers in Kern County for over 100 megawatts of power. And on their website, they talk about having created or supported 2,400 jobs. Next was Sonoma Clean Power, and they started in 2014 with just the unincorporated areas of the county, and within the end of the first year, all of the cities had joined in except for Healdsburg, which had its own local utility. So now they're the dominant energy supplier in Sonoma County with over 200,000 customers, and the opt-out share has been about 11%, so roughly a 90% share of residential and commercial customers. And they were fortunate in having a very strong water agency when they set up. So Chuck was mentioning the possibility of getting the benefits of cooperation between different entities. And the water agency really helped Sonoma set up their CCE. And it's interesting to note that they're now 100% powered by renewable energy. They've done a very interesting floating solar panel project on top of collection pools, which is the largest in the United States at 12.5 megawatts. Sonoma has a lot of geothermal, so they're above now 20% in their geothermal energy portion of supplies. And they've also done solar projects both in the county and out of the county, and they're delivering at rates of 5% under the incumbent utility. And in the first year of operation, they served customers $6 million. Most recently, we have Lancaster Choice Energy, which rolled out in May 2015 with all of their municipal accounts. They're sort of beta testing that way, and then moving to full operation in October of 2015. They have set their prices at 3% below the incumbent utility. And of interest to us is that this is the first CCE or CCA set up in the Southern California Edison region. Rick and I went to visit them, the Lancaster, not long ago, and they said that was working very smoothly. Mayor Rex Paris has been very much out in front of this this program. There's a very nice YouTube video of their opening announcement day. But they're doing this in the context of a lot of other solar projects that they've been doing for some time. I won't mention them now, but you know, solar roof projects. Schools all have solar projects and solar parking sheds, and all municipal buildings. And they've got the only renewable energy minor league baseball stadium in the country. So all of these three have slightly different rooftop solar energy purchase rates and feed-in tariffs. These can be used to stimulate business and employment in areas. They have taken care and medical base customers. And all of the different CCEs have different energy efficiency programs for customers. And they have slightly different renewable energy portfolios. All of this, I think, would be of interest to our community. And it seems to me that since Ventura and Santa Barbara have already done heavy lifting at this point by allocating money to do a technical study of CCEs in our area, that it would make a lot of sense for Camarillo to support that study. To be in on the ground floor, to track the progress, to weigh in on things that are important to our city, to get the data, to see if it pencils out and makes sense, and be in a position to make a wise decision about implementation. And I think this could be done at very minimal cost through a non-binding resolution of the council. So that concludes my presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions if you have any, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak.
Yes, Mike?
Wait, Angus, come back. You didn't think you were going to get away that easy, did you?
No, I expected you to have some questions.
What do you think the cost for our participation would be? Santa Barbara's a lot bigger than we are, and so is the county. What do you think our cost would be?
You know, I don't want to, I'm not an elected official. I have no authority to speak on anybody else's behalf. I think that would be a matter for the city to talk with, you know, the powers that be in the county and, you know, the chief executive officer and sort of work that out. But I think it would be, you know, a minimal cost compared to what they've put up. But that's just a guess.
The other question I have is, because it always gets me, is I know we have no rain, but if we do, and they have a typical winter up in Marin County, where you have, I used to live in Alameda, and my dad was in the Navy for 2 years, and it's always overcast, June, January, February, so on. If you had that kind of a problem, weather came back, how would that affect their production up there on solar?
Well, it depends on, I mean, if you're talking about Camarillo or Ventura or any jurisdiction, I mean, of course, we have a very nice climate here in Camarillo, and Lancaster has, you know, awesome solar opportunities. But everybody has, but we're in California, and we know what the standard, you know, days of sun is. And, you know, the sources are a variety of sources, so it's not just one source, it's a variety of sources, and they're spread out geographically, and they don't have to be, I mean, it's, you know, there's a lot of benefit for getting them done locally and in the county, but they can also be, some of the sources can be outside the county and even outside the state, and as long as the sources come into the grid, and are paid for by the CCE, they come out in Ventura County or in Camarillo.
We had, the reason I asked that question is we had it today on TV. I walked by the TV and it had flash flood warnings. What? In the high desert areas, all through there, through where you were talking about, plus further south. And then today you see all the storm clouds over in that direction. How would that affect your production?
Well, I think it's unlikely that these flash floods would be all in every place that was producing energy at the same time. So, I'd say there's a diversity of sources. All of the CCEs that are up and running have a wide variety of sources. I think MCE has something like 24 or 26 different contracts with about 12 different suppliers. So, you're not relying on any one source of supply.
Thank you.
It seems to me all these would have to have a contract with a out-of-state power company to have the backup, because renewable energy, as far as I know, are by definition more expensive than traditional fossil fuel generations. So I'm assuming that all of these have some tie-in with maybe Oregon or Washington or Arizona or someplace to buy cheaper energy than what can be produced in California. Is that what happens?
Mayor, let me answer that question for you. In many cases, there's an alliance with one of the easiest ones is Pacific Corp. They handle most of Utah, Oregon, and parts of Colorado. And it's far enough away, yet you're able to, there's a power exchange with Southern California and with that region. And again, when we talk about renewables, we're talking about perhaps 33 to 50%. An individual homeowner can pick 100%, but most people stick with whatever mix the utility, the CCA, has put together.
So it's not always just,
it's not always renewable.
There's also the backup of having a power grid someplace in the western states to acquire energy from and exchange it with Edison.
Right. It's not a complete reversal of you're not disconnected from those existing sources. Keep in mind that this is very similar to a municipal utility district, like some of the smaller cities such as Glendale, Burbank, Anaheim. There's a lot more up in the Agriculture Valley. But we have a huge resource here in Ventura County, just simply in the biomass that's produced in the ag facility that's not really taken advantage of. Hewlings is doing some interesting work. They're 13 megawatts, but that's only one plant. And Lyman area is doing quite a bit of work as well. But there's a huge potential. But beyond the straight renewables, which is often considered solar, there's a lot of potential in landfill gas that hasn't been tapped. There's a lot of potential in wastewater treatment gas. The only wastewater treatment plant that has done much of note is Hill Canyon in Thousand Oaks. So there are many sources that we can acquire from to minimize the risk of, if the sun goes dark one day, that we're all out of power. They're sensitive to that.
Excuse me, Mike.
Go ahead, Bill.
Getting back to how you can save money for the general public, and given the fact that renewables, at least in the foreseeable future, are going to be more expensive than other, you need to have some kind of tie-in with some kind of a power cooperative in that way. And the reason you can make money is because they can produce or buy electricity on their grid system cheaper than what can be produced in California. Is that right?
Well, part of it is not to extend this too much, but part of it's an overhead number. The Sonoma Group operates with 15 people. Compare that to the overhead in the incumbent utilities. It's an incredibly efficient but very focused group of people. 15 people in Sonoma operate the CCE.
My question is, because someone said, I forgot who it was, that Edison will be kept revenue neutral, which to me says that we pay Edison what we're paying Edison.
Edison is
Less
revenue neutral on their distribution component.
Oh, only on their distribution.
On the distribution component. In other words, the money that's allocated to connect to generation sources, transmit that power to substations, all the way to and including your meter, that's revenue neutral.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one
Yes,
quick question.
go ahead.
Yeah, just one quick question. The job growth and the job creation, typically, where does that come from?
Well, it comes from the projects that are being developed locally. In other words, if you were to go out and have a power purchase agreement, first of all, it's easily done in a CCE, done more quickly. But it would be the deployment of the typical energy projects. Keep in mind, you already are keeping the employment for the distribution network. So if you have Edison yards and things of that nature, those stay in place here. They don't go away because you're still handling the network. But it would be the jobs of either putting in distributed energy sources, small plants or biomass plants, those types of deployment efforts that would continue to go on in maintaining those facilities.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which is a lot more labor than just putting in a power plant on the beach in Oxnard.
Hunter?
Thank you.
Just real quick, because you went right through that thing about our power plant, our sanitary plant and all that good stuff and how we make energy and so on. We are considering doing those things right now and making energy that helps offset the energy costs for our plant, be that solar cells, be that, what do you call that thing, cogeneration and so on.
Correct.
Then what would we do, sell it to you?
Well, there's two steps that you would do. The first step would be is that you would meet your own needs. The second step would be you would sell whatever surplus you have. Wastewater treatment plant in Thousand Oaks could generate twice as much methane as they use today, but they're only got engines to burn a sufficient amount of it because that's all they need at their facility. They're actually prohibited. But and part of that has to do with the tariffs that Edison has set up, but the other part is that there's really no easy way to transport it. So you'd first use yours because that's a zero cost. The second would be that you would turn around and sell the excess to the CCE, and you'd have a ready market for that excess.
So you had to have what do you call that thing? You have a place to hook your generation in to go into the system.
You'd have an interconnect to the grid to be able to push that power.
And that power, if we sign it by agreement, you get credit for it from Edison, and then they ship it for you, right?
Yes. It comes into the grid. They still get carried their distribution charge.
Right.
And it's kind of the same way Hewlings has it. Hewling produces a lot of power.
Howlings?
Howlings.
Howlings, okay.
13 megawatts. Edison carries that to the Santa Clara substation, and then CalISO buys it sells it on the wholesale market.
Okay.
Any other questions?
But this would not. Let me help you. Let me clarify this. This would not make those types of projects more difficult. It would actually make those types of projects easier because you'd be able to get a power purchase agreement. Today, for that, let's say you were producing in total a megawatt of energy, and you were only going to use half of that. It's pretty hard to get a power purchase agreement from Edison for half a megawatt. Whereas when you're dealing locally with your own utility company, it's a lot easier. It's possible.
So you could buy it all then.
And as I understand it, anyone in that, if such a thing was created in Camarillo or Ventura County or the whole thing, people who are with Edison can elect to stay with Edison.
Absolutely. They have four
opportunities. And only those who wish to be a little bit more adventurous can change over. Okay.
We won't make any judgment on this statement.
Okay.
But correct, they have an opportunity, and you can, given on anniversaries, you can move back and forth.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the council? Would we like to?
It's just a presentation, so.
I understand, but do we want to ask the city manager to explore it further or not?
I'd like to find out, Your Honor, how it's working, where he says it's working. For instance, if they knew how I was working in, what was it, Lancaster? Or if you call up Marin County and say, well, what's going on? Are you making money? Are things going well? Then you'd find out there's a history in what's going on, Your Honor.
Well,
that would shut it down big time if it's not going well.
As I understand it, Ventura County has teamed up with Santa Barbara County to undertake a feasibility study. And I think the first thing we would need to find out is, do we just let them go ahead and do it, or are we interested in being part of it?
Perhaps I could add a little more information. Probably a month ago, and thank you for the presentation. Really made a lot of sense. Probably a month ago, the county CEO has contacted the city manager group. This is the group comprised of the CEO and the 10 city managers in Ventura County, and he's requested that this item be agendized, which is our next managers meeting, to check on feasibility and interest on this. And it's a typical regional item that we discuss. It may come back to VCOG. It may come back to it would come back to our body for sure, either way. But there's merit when it comes to saving funds for the community. There's always an interest.
So,
Your Honor, if I could ask a question, if this is going to be discussed, I'd like to know the comparison to this to what occurred right after Assembly Bill 711 or 117, whatever it was. At that point in time, there were companies that came about, and you were able to choose to buy energy from them. I think that has kind of gone away. I don't know if anybody's still doing that, but I would like to know the difference between this model versus what came about right after Assembly Bill 117 was passed. And I think that's back to like 2002. I know there were some school districts that had opted into it, and I'm not sure if they're still doing it today.
well, if the city manager is going to get a briefing on it, why don't we just wait till he has that, and then he can bring it back and
sounds like a good idea.
Inform us of what he finds out.
Yeah, I'd like to see that happen.
And I guess being cheap here, but it seems to me if the county's doing it, do they look at the county as a whole, or do you have to have a separate study for each city? And that would be a question to ask.
And then the question is, if the county sets it up on its own, do they make all the money, though? That's the other problem.
I don't think we're supposed to be making money out of it.
Well, the city of Santa Barbara is involved in this too, are they not?
Yes. Well, county of Santa Barbara.
County of Santa Barbara.
It says city here.
Well, city, county, yeah.
Both?
Both of them are part of it. Okay, let's, if that's okay, let's we'll move on. Thank you for your presentation. It's very informative.
Your Honor, before we go on to the next presentation, normally we don't hold public comment over until almost 8:15 at night. And if this is going to be another long presentation, I would ask that we move public comment up to closer to our 7:30. I know there's people in the audience that are here to address us. And I'm watching them getting rather antsy out there.
Okay. Any objection to that?
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Morgan?
No problem.
All right. Let's move that up. Next item. Public comments. We have Roberta Martinez of Boys and Girls Club. Roberto?
Good evening. My name is Roberto Martinez, and I am the interim CEO at the Boys and Girls Club of Camarillo. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize the dignitaries in the room, Mayor Bill Little, Council Members Jan McDonald, Mike Morgan, Kevin Kildee, and of course we have City Manager Bruce Fang, City Attorney Brian Pierrick, and Police Chief Monica McGrath. And of course, I'd like to recognize Charlotte Craven as well. As some of you guys may be aware, I'd also like to recognize former Mayor Bill Little as a past board president for the Boys and Girls Club, as well as both Jan McDonald and Monica McGrath as current members of our organization. And as you guys may be aware, several of our past police chiefs have also been board members of the Boys and Girls Club, including Steve DeCesare, Guy Stewart, Craig Husbands, and David Tennyson. So that right there demonstrates the strong relationship between the Boys and Girls Club and the city of Camarillo.
I hate to stop you, but I was when Shigaboo was there, when it's out on Berry Street. I was part of it then.
Oh, my apologies. Well, thank you as well. Thank you as well. And that further shows the support. So I would like to thank you guys for all your support and the community as a whole. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Well, we thank you, and we know you're going through a change of leadership, and we're glad to see your work is being assisted by Dave Tennyson and others that been involved in the organization. So.
I'd like to welcome Dave Tennyson back, and he's taking him around everywhere. I mean, I've seen him 3 places so far with Dave introducing him around town.
I thought we sent him to South Dakota.
Yeah,
Send him back.
His wife brought him back.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, does anyone else wishes to make any comments, or you have any more comments, Roberto?
No, just thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the time.
Well, we wish you the very best in your endeavors moving forward. It's making a change like that is always somewhat disconcerting, but I know you're going to carry on well, and you're supported by some very good people out there.
Definitely, it's definitely exciting, and the whole community has been very supportive. So
good.
I'm very happy for that.
You might recognize your fellow, your board members, I guess, out there that came along to support you.
Definitely. I'd like to thank David Press, Doug Stotts, our board president, Jonathan Boring, and David Tennyson.
Thank you for coming.
Power lineup. Power lineup.
Yeah, not everybody has a former police chief as a bodyguard as it goes around town.
I noticed that. I'm sure not going to do anything.
And a driver, okay.
Driver.
Thank
Well, thank
you.
you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next one we have is Matthew Lorimer.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Jan McDonald for moving the time up. I appreciate that.
Anytime, Matt.
You know, citizens are important in this community. I appreciate that. Usually public comments are at 7:30. I've been going to city councils for about 6 years. We've been in a drought 4 years. July 22, we had obviously, we were going to have will serve letters, which basically developers to stop building. Mike Morgan, Charlotte Craven, and Bill Little voted to continue to build. You know, the water situation isn't getting better. And, you know, some of the comments that the city council made were kind of ridiculous. Ms. Craven seemed to blame the city attorney as being set up. Nobody pushed the button to make her vote for building more houses and not having the water. It's kind of ridiculous. Mr. Morgan talked about the townhouses, and I raised a question about the fact that we're going to have more traffic with townhouses than development. He tried to get the developer to say otherwise, and the developer backed away from that real quick. I thought that was kind of interesting. Regarding the city manager's comments, he said the developer has building rights. You know, you want to talk about rights? How about the fact is that you had developers call you. You went on record. You would, to this time, you haven't said how long those meetings were, how many times they called you. You still haven't said anything like that, which is kind of ridiculous considering they seem to have a back door. It really seems like that, considering all the votes that happen here. You know, there's a favorite word we seem to use around here. You know, Camarillo Springs, they're trying to get their issue solved. Lamplighter, we can go to senior center. The favorite word to use is lawsuits. The city manager said, oh, we got to worry about lawsuits. That seems like to be the code word for not getting things done in the city. You know, I've been to other city council meetings throughout the county, and they don't use that word as much as this city council does. And let me remind you, the city manager costs this city a lot of money, and you gave him a 5% increase. The fact is, you're public servants, and you're supposed to represent the public interest. And, you know, people called for a town hall meeting, and the fact is, how are you going to get water to this development? By making the citizens continue to save? What if the governor asked for another 10% reduction? How are you going to come about with that? The fact is, we're in a severe drought. The continuation of buildings doesn't make sense. You can spin it to the public all you want. The bottom line is, we're in a serious drought here. You shouldn't be approving more and more building in Camarillo until that situation is fixed. We really don't need it due to the traffic and other issues. But the idea that you're going to spin it to the public and say that you can get more savings is ridiculous. Thank you.
The next one is Diane Halfer, I think. Diane? Apparently not. And we have one now. Christine Rangel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to testify today on behalf of the Building Industry Association, Los Angeles and Ventura County.
Could you put that mic a little closer? I'm sorry. Thank
Yes. Is that better? Thank you. So obviously this has been something that's concerning all of us, saving water, and I don't want, I want to reiterate the message that this is something that the building industry also takes very seriously, and I'm just here to remind you today that home builders are doing everything to combat the drought in terms of finding solutions to mitigate the drought. We do build homes that use half as much water as most of the existing housing stock in California. And in many cases, through smart building techniques and off-site offsets, we can promise no net new water use from some new home projects. Some of those conservation features include new dishwashers, state-required high-efficiency toilets, faucets, shower heads, all which have become more efficient over the past few years when these new standards have gone into effect, and we continue to improve all of the time. New outside conservation features include limitations of turf in home and community landscaping and increasing the use of drought-tolerant landscaping and micro-drip irrigation. Home builders support the governor's proposal to update state model water-efficient landscape ordinance. And we do help fund water conservation programs, which contribute to the construction of water recycling plants and recycled water pipelines. Governor Brown's drought executive order envisions continued construction of new homes, which is essential to protect California's economic recovery. So rather than imposing restrictions on new home construction, he defines what water-saving technology should be incorporated into new communities, and that's what we support as well. Home builders are leading the way in turf reduction. Even before the governor's order, home builders were required to use less turf, and we were actually doing that on our own, using more water-conserving shrubs. And new home communities now are no longer using turf in front of lawns or in street medians. So just in closing, more water can be saved by focusing on inefficient older homes that are using more water now, not on highly efficient homes that likely will not even come to the market until the current drought is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's all the cards, and if that's it, we'll go back up to presentations. A presentation by city staff, water conservation update. This might answer some questions that have been raised in the public comments. So, Mr. Fox?
Your Honor, yes. Earlier today when I was gathering my thoughts on what to say, I was trying to figure out what my opening remark would be, and I decided it was going to be the drought is a popular topic. And I appreciate that the audience has helped reinforce that, and clearly it is a subject matter that comes up a lot. And for that reason, we felt that it was timely to update a presentation that we made to you back in April. So about 5 months ago, we made a presentation on our water plan and our strategies. And I'll recap that real quickly just to kind of leave off where we were 5 months ago. And clearly there's some new things to discuss that have occurred since then, and that's really the focus of the update. But to recap, we have a long-range plan, and it's long-range in the sense that we started 10 years ago assembling some of the components of this plan. And it's a plan that has been effective. is effective and will continue to be effective. So it is long range with multiple strategies, and I'll cover those. The benefit of starting 10 years ago is that some of these strategies are just coming to fruition, and they're coming at just the right time, where because of the drought we have some measures we can move forward with that other cities don't have the benefit of being able to implement because it takes time to develop those strategies. Now, one of the topics I'm going to cover, this is something we talked about 5 months ago. I'm going to later in the presentation go into some water conservation, more information on that I won't cover right now. Recycled water program I'll just touch on real quickly, and that'll be pretty much it for this presentation. The city has invested over the last 10 years $40 million into a recycled water program because of improvements we had to make at our plant, putting in pipes and connecting up the infrastructure to our community. And again, that's just coming to fruition. We currently are serving about 2 million gallons a day of recycled water, and we expect more customers to be coming online because it is an affordable water source that is helpful to those that can use it. And so we produce about 4 million gallons a day at our plant, and we expect to eventually deliver all of that to customers. And as an example of the savings, the Parks District is using recycled water at the sports park, and that's saving them about $110,000 a year. So this is one of our strategies that, again, took time and money to put into place, but the benefit is it's here, and it's here at the right time. A project that we've talked about is a desalination plant, and that's where we would extract brackish water, salty water, groundwater from the north end of the city and treat it and use it. It's a source of water nobody can use right now. The benefit of that is that we would basically replace, and just to kind of give you a sense of where we get our water, it would replace one of our sources, and that is state imported water. About half of the water we serve to our service area is water we purchase through the state water program. We also, the other half, the other main source is pumping water from the ground. We would continue to pump, but our thought is that we could replace the state imported water with water that nobody can use right now. We can pump it out, treat it, and that gives us a source that's reliable, that's local. So if something were to happen to the state water project, and we're no longer dependent on state water, then we have more reliability through the desalter. It also gives us rate stability. The state water comes through Metropolitan. The Metropolitan rates have gone up significantly over the years, and we expect will continue to go up. And by having our own plant and having our own source, then we have the ability to control our rates, our water rates, and keep from having our customers have to pay dramatically increasing rates over time. So again, that's another key strategy. We've been in pre-design and permitting stage, and we hope to hopefully later this year bring that to closure and go into formal design and begin constructions next year. So that's about all I'm going to touch on that topic. And then I will later in the presentation really wrap up with our fourth strategy, and that is, and probably the simplest way I can say this, is our goal is that new customers will not impact existing customers, and that's a topic we'll discuss a little more. So with that in mind, before I get into talking more on water conservation, I kind of want to set the stage and remind that we do have the governor's executive order that is really a result of a series of requirements that the state's put into effect. As more than a year and a half ago, we had the emergency, the state of emergency proclaimed because of the drought, because of water shortage. That was reinforced later in that year. And then this year, in April, we had the governor put into effect something that in my career I've never seen, but that is an executive order with key points that are more restrictive than we've ever had the state impose on us before. So that will be part of the topic of the discussion as well, is how are we doing in responding to the governor's executive order. So again, we had the governor put in the order that set a statewide goal of a 25% reduction on average statewide. Then the Department of Water Resources, DWR, was tasked with coming up with the details. Now, how does this roll out to all of the water service areas, and how do we come about meeting that statewide goal? And so DWR came up with a requirement for all the different water service areas, depending on, and it varied, and it depends on how well we've done in the past with conservation, or how well we've been doing up to the April point. And Camarillo had been doing pretty well, so we got one of the lower requirements, and that was to reduce our demand by 20%. And that's based off of, they want us to look at the year 2013, how much water did we use, and that's the baseline, and we have to reduce that by 20%, and that sets our cap. And as I mentioned, it's a cap, and it's a fixed cap. There's no adjustment to that because of, well, for example, what we had been able to use in the past was transfer of water rights. So if a property were to be under a farming operation but have a well and a water right, if they converted and homes were built on that property, the city would get that water right, and we would be able to pump the water to serve to that part of the community. That's still something we can do in the water rights transfer, but temporarily that requirement has been suspended by the governor's executive order under this cap, which is, again, a temporary measure that is currently in place until February of 2016. This is a map showing the city and the different water service areas, and this is really just a reminder that the city does not serve water to the entire community. We serve to the area that's highlighted and shaded in red, and that's about 2/3 of the residents of the community, primarily most of the residents living west of Cayugas Creek, except for a few areas up north of Las Posas Road. That defines our service area. The different service areas have different goals that have been imposed as far as reducing from the 2013 demand. Some of the smaller, like Pleasant Valley Mutual, smaller service areas are exempt because of their size. Again, Camarillo, for our service area, is tasked with reducing demand by 20% from the 2013 baseline. So now moving into, that's what's been imposed upon us as far as cutbacks. So let's talk about our water conservation program. And this is a chart that shows the percent reduction from the 2013 baseline that we've achieved over the last 2 years, or year basically. And the goal's been exceeded that the governor and DWR has set for us, and I'll go a little more into that, so that's good news. What's happened is, of course, this is a very popular topic, so there's been a lot of discussion about the drought and what Camarillo is doing about it, and there's been some misinformation and some inaccurate information that's come out, and this is to try and hopefully at least create a clear message so you have accurate information going forward through the rest of this discussion. We have, under the DWR's guidelines, starting in June, had to submit information to the state reporting on what our water consumption was and how that compared to 2013. So the monitoring program went into effect 2 months ago, and the good news is for both June and July, we exceeded the 20% goal. You can see the 25 and 27%. And we actually received a confirmation from the state congratulating us for exceeding the goal that was set for us, and that's good news. We just want to confirm that we are compliant with the governor's mandate at this point, and we appreciate that the community has responded and is working well to continue to meet that mandate. So now, something I want to kind of reach out with for somebody that might be looking at this and wanting to understand, watching the presentation at home, or if this is, eventually on our website, that somebody could look at this and get some input as to where some of the things we're doing and where they can get more information. First thing I want to point out is recently Council, as you know, you approved some changes to our landscape guidelines, and that's very critical because it allows now residents to implement certain drought-tolerant landscapes that they haven't been able to in the past. And so for those out there that may have been thinking about doing this but weren't able to comply old requirements and achieve the type of landscape they were hoping, the drought-tolerant landscaping they were hoping to implement. The guidelines are much more supportive of that now, and we would encourage people that if they had thought about it in the past but decided not to because of the guidelines at the time, to revisit that, because there may be some real opportunities now with these changes. Also, our water department, the phone number I've put up, 388-5373, is a number that if people call, it gets us directly to the water department, the water division for the city. This number is also, if they go to the city, anybody goes to the city website, they can find that information there. Very helpful people, ready to guide residents and business owners if they want to conserve, guide them to resources and help them. And one of the key things that they can point out, and also is available if you want more information, go to our website, is there are workshops, there are some tips on our website. These workshops are periodic, so there's routine opportunities to attend workshops and get more information. And some of this information, again, our staff will even share if you call and be able to give you some basics and then direct you to more information if you want that. So I think maybe one of the important messages is go to the city website and you can find links to a lot of resources. And another one of those links is if you, again, want to look at reducing landscape watering needs. This is a great resource, CamarioGardening.com. The thing to point out is for a lot of single-family homes, I'll use that as an example, almost half of the water use for that home comes from the outdoor watering. So if people can just reduce water use outside, they've already made a big dent in reducing the water demand. Also, another good link on our website to the Be Waterwise website. Be Waterwise has some resources available people can use. For example, if somebody wanted to remove turf and put in a drought-tolerant landscape, there are some rebates for turf removal, and there are other types of rebates as well. So if people are looking for some financial assistance, this is a good resource. So again, I put this up just so that if to remind everybody that, you know, you're not on your own. We're trying to make resources available to help people conserve. Now, as far as protecting the water supply for current customers, that's the last one of our strategies, and I'll wrap up by talking about that. Again, I'll just say very clearly, the goal is that new customers do not impact existing customers. And more specifically, the wording on the policy is new development must bring its own water through water credit transfers or mitigate by reducing water usage elsewhere within the service area. So that is basically saying they create a zero impact to current customers. Now, we have a program in place that was developed to do that and was doing well. Temporarily, though, that's been impacted, as I mentioned before, by the governor's executive order. We have this temporary cap, which is a new way of doing business we've never had to adapt to before. So we will be, and we are in the process of developing a strategy to adapt to that. We have not been reaching out yet to the public. We wanted to update you. We will be doing that. So there has been some confusion, thinking that somehow we've been talking to one part of the community and not another part. The idea is that before we reach out to the community to get input to ultimately bring a solution back to you, we want to make sure we have strategies that can be implemented and can be enforced. And so we're working on that. We don't have anything available tonight to present, except that we are working to try and bring some ideas forward to a town meeting, tentatively setting October 5th as a date to do that. It would be at our library, and more information to come out on that. But that's a goal we're shooting for, is to try and have a town meeting to lay out some ideas and get people's feedback. And then we would bring back a recommendation to you. Again, a goal tentatively shooting for the October 14th council meeting as a public hearing. It'll be noticed to try and get the word out so everybody has an opportunity to attend and provide input in that meeting as well. And at that time, we hope to present a strategy for you that will help us achieve the goal of protecting the water supply for our current customers, as well as continuing the good program that we have in place far into the future. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council have any comments or questions? Okay, well, that's That's well done. We'll wait to hear that strategy in a couple of meetings from now. Okay, that concludes our presentations, and we'll move on now to public hearings. Items A and B were resolutions on the Residential Development Control Ordinance and the Development Allocation Reward Cycle. And Mr. City Manager, those have been canceled.
Those have been canceled, and we will
Brought
reschedule
back
those.
at a date in the future.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll move on to item C, which is a resolution approving negative declaration 2015-10 and approving the 2015 update to the general plan noise element. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor Little. We have Jackie Lee from our Community Development Department that will be offering the presentation. So Mrs. Lee is here this evening.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Little and City Council members. I would like to also introduce our consultant, Greg Martin. He's from Rincon Consultants, and their firm assisted the city in the preparation of the updated noise element. And the two of us will be presenting to you tonight the update to the general plan noise element. So if you want to come up. Okay, thank you. So just to give you some background, the noise element is one of the 7 mandatory elements of the general plan. And the primary purpose of the element is to limit the exposure of the community to excessive noise intrusion and to ensure that land uses are compatible with current and projected future environmental noise levels. And the last time that we updated the noise element was back in 1996, so it's about due. And I just wanted to give you a background on where we came from and how we got here tonight. So back in January of this year, we had a study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council. And during that time, we presented to you the, I guess, just give you an overview of the proposal to update the noise element and to get you familiar with that process. And we took your feedback and some of the comments that you provided before we actually delve into updating the noise element. And then we had a similar meeting with the Citizens Advisory Committee in February, where we received input from that committee as well. And then in June of this year, after the draft element was prepared, we met with the Planning Commission and City Council again to show you the draft noise element and to receive your feedback and your comments on that. And so we did hear your comments, and we did respond to that and make sure that we incorporated those comments into the draft element that you'll see tonight. And then we had a meeting also with the Citizens Advisory Committee where we took their feedback as well. And so we had a Planning Commission meeting last month, and the Planning Commission, we presented to them the noise element, and they recommended to move forward to the City Council with a recommendation to adopt the noise element. And we're here tonight for our first City Council hearing. And I have some slides here that show some of the community noise survey and contour maps that our consultant will provide you an overview with.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, members of the City Council, for having me here tonight. Apologize if my voice is a little croaky. But so one of the first things we did as part of this noise element update was to actually go out and measure current noise levels in the community. And so that's what we mean by this community noise survey. So the noise measurements on this map were taken on February 26th through 27th and March 4th and 5th of 2015. Those were weekdays. By Vanaclaus and Associates, who we worked with on this project. They are an acoustical consulting firm based in Santa Monica. The location of the noise measurements was based on known significant noise sources in the community and where the sensitive receptors are. And sensitive receptors are generally residential areas, schools, other noise-sensitive uses like libraries, hospitals, nursing homes, etc. And then also we did look at the city's current noise element, which is actually 1996, I believe, as Jackie said. But we also updated this and really took it a step further, or several steps further, through our own research, the community meetings, input from the Planning Commission, City Council, Citizens Advisory Committee. So these noise measurements are used to characterize the existing noise environment in the city, or as part of that, characterizing it, and to provide a reality check, so to speak, for the model noise contours, which you'll see later. So these are the existing noise contours, and these are different. These are modeled, and they are, for the most part, based on traffic noise, which, as in almost any community, is the main source of noise in the community. In some areas, there may be some other sources of noise, such as major industrial operations or other non-transportation-related sources. However, in most communities and in Camarillo, major transportation facilities are the main source of noise from the traffic, of course. And this existing meaning 2015 now, existing noise contours show that noise levels are above 60 decibels, which is the yellow area, 60 decibels and above, and then the darker colors are progressively higher. Over broad areas of the city near major roadways, and they are above 70 decibels, which is the blue and the red. But in very narrow areas near some major roadways, especially the 101 freeway, where that area of greater than 70 decibel noise is wider, simply because of the heavy volume of traffic there. And this noise contour map and the future noise contours, and those are projected out 20 years. I'll show you that. And this is the future noise contours. I do want to say that after our last meeting and after the circulation of the negative declaration, we got a comment from Camarillo Airport asking that the noise contours around the Camarillo Airport be updated to reflect their master plan rather than the county airport land use plan. So we did that since that last meeting. So I'll skip back to the existing. This is the modeled existing noise contours, or areas of certain noise levels in the community. And if we go to the future noise contours 20 years from now, generally we can see that noise levels increase only incrementally, just a little bit, around major roadways, although this does put some areas, some new areas within that 60 CNEL, and that is a type of measurement of decibels which takes into account, it's the community noise equivalent level, and so it makes some adjustments to reflect the way people really perceive noise, and weights noise in the nighttime more heavily, for example, because it's more disturbing in reality to most people. So it looks very similar, but it's incremental expansion of noise levels out from the freeway, other major arterials like Lewis Road, Las Posas, Santa Rosa Road, etc.
Mr. Martin, I just wanted to also provide a little bit of additional input that this does not take into account topographic features such as sound berms or noise walls. This is just a flat projection, assuming that everything is relatively flat and it's a model.
I'm glad you said that, because I was out there checking out up on Spanish Hills to see if I could hear it. Those berms been put up, just cut it 3/4. And you go down below, and I had a lady walking on the street with a dog, said, "Where is the freeway?" She couldn't hear it. And
Yeah.
so those berms have taken the little light green out. That's out wherever those are built. I'm telling you, you can't hear it.
Right. Those noise measurements would be verified through site-specific noise studies by an acoustical engineer if required as part of a development project. So that's correct. This is
So that
just
can
a
be
general model.
Well,
No, because this kind of shows that we have a potential for an incompatibility between a sensitive noise receptor such as residential land use adjacent to the freeway. But with further analysis, project-related analysis and acoustical analysis, then you could apply further, more restrictive mitigation measures to address noise.
And really the reason that we don't try to model on a community-wide level the effects of sound walls or berms or topography is because those effects are so localized that it's not really possible, or well, that's not practical at all, to account for all the different interplay between topography and existing sound walls, existing topography, buildings, reflection effects. So it is this is a conservative estimate, and it's saying if, just based on distance, if you had a line of sight from this noise source, this could be the noise level, and this is averaged out over a day. So in these areas, there's the potential for an issue with noise, and it should be, and then there are policies in the noise element, as there were in the existing, to say in these areas, noise issues need to be examined if there's new development proposed in these areas. And so it's a land use planning tool to be used in conjunction with your land use element and other elements, and mobility element, circulation element, other elements of your general plan. So, and this slide actually states some of what I've already said about the difference between the noise contour maps, and that noise will increase incrementally, is projected to increase over the next 20 years, especially along the US 101 corridor, especially because that's a regional roadway, and regardless of whether or not Camarillo grows, most likely you would still experience increased traffic on the 101. But there are secondary or other sources of noise in Camarillo, and those include railroad operations. We did take that into account and show that on the noise contour maps. Airport operations and overflights from aircrafts. Now, because those noise contour maps are showing noise levels averaged out over an entire day, that temporary impact of a jet flying overhead, for example, from the Naval Air Station or from any other source, could be very loud for a very short period of time, but not have very much of an effect on the noise level for the whole day. For example, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be taken into consideration. However, as a land use planning tool, the disturbance of having a consistently loud noise level throughout the entire day is much more impactful than a very short-term event. And then there are other noise sources, of course, what we frequently call community noise sources, meaning they're basically generated in the community, not from pass-through traffic. Stationary sources, for example, from commercial and industrial operations, such as generators, delivery trucks, and construction equipment. So, for example, industrial areas are frequently considered a noise generator, and so the siting of industrial and commercial areas and residential areas, which are the sensitive receivers, needs to be taken into account. And construction operations from whatever kind of use, or construction of any kind of use, also need to be taken into account. Okay. So we found, in consultation with city staff and through the community meetings, the meetings with the City Council and the Planning Commission, Citizens Advisory Committee, that the existing policy and regulatory framework in your current general plan, noise element, and your noise ordinance does serve the city well. And the noise ordinance is simply the parts of the municipal code dealing with noise. So we're only proposing minor changes to goals and policies in the noise element. The proposed noise element includes new policies to reduce the impacts of non-transportation noise, such as construction, maintenance, deliveries, city operations, and new policies for noise control for mixed-use developments. If those are proposed, then there are policies to address noise control and compatibility. And we did attempt to simplify and streamline some of the implementation measures in the current noise element, partly due to simply the fact that some of those measures have been carried out that are in the city's current noise element, such as develop an effective noise ordinance. Well, the city has done that, so so we also try to consolidate some of the other implementation measures. So, Jackie will take it from here. And if you have any questions, of course, you can ask me after the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, just to conclude, there are 4 goals in the current noise element, and the proposed updated element would still retain the same number of goals with the same intent, but we revised the language so that it reads more like a goal that express the overarching values and desired outcomes. The updated noise element proposes the following goals, and they're broken down into the categories of noise and land use planning integration, transportation noise control, community noise control, and city operations. And under each of those goals, there are objectives and policies that provide more specific and measurable strategies and actions in order to achieve those goals. So to walk you through each of those goals, goal number 1 is that Camarillo's land use pattern is compatible with current and future noise levels. And goal 2, that noise impacts affecting noise-sensitive land uses from transportation sources are minimized. Goal 3, construction, maintenance, and nuisance noise in residential and noise-sensitive land uses is reduced. And goal 4, the quality of life in the community is improved through efforts on the part of the city to reduce noise impacts. Based on the analysis in the initial study, it was determined that the project would not have a significant effect on the environment, and a negative declaration was prepared and circulated on July 28th for a 20-day review period ending on August 17th. And to conclude, the updated noise element would provide policies to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the public by limiting the exposure of the community to excessive noise levels. It also addresses the mandatory noise element criteria and has been prepared in accordance with the 2003 State General Plan guidelines. And at the August 18th Planning Commission meeting, the Commission recommended that the City Council approve Negative Declaration 2015-10 and approve the City of Camarillo 2015 update to the General Plan noise element. And that concludes our report, and we're available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate both of you explaining this. This has been studied several times, but has been mentioned by this City Council in study sessions. So does any councilman have any questions? Yes.
Yeah. The last time that this was updated and this time that we updated, did you find anything unusual between the two reports?
Between the 1996 current one and the one today?
I just asked because that was kind of interesting as I look back on the 96, the number one case causes of noise, of course, were automobiles. And this one, it's still pretty much automobile and truck noise in that 101.
Yes. We did find that there weren't really any significant changes or problem areas that we've identified in the update. So we, in the 1996, which is the existing noise element, that projected future noise levels to occur at actually today, 2015. And looking at the 2015 projected noise levels, and looking at when we redid the model to show what the existing noise levels would be on the contour map, they were fairly consistent. I can also ask our consultant to also provide you with any additional information on that.
So, what is your question about comparing the current noise element and the proposed noise element? It's what are the differences between them?
Yeah, just did you find anything unusual in the two reports from? I know I don't believe you did the first one, but this one here, is there obviously a lot of similarities? Was there anything that you found that was unexpected?
Actually, I would say not really unexpected. Part of the reason for updating the noise element, I would say, it's to project the noise levels out into the future. And even though I would say no, basically, there was not really anything too unexpected, but it's still, a necessary exercise, and largely it's a chance to revisit your goals and policies. And when you get down into that policy level and the implementation level, we went to the community and said, what matters to you? And we didn't really listen to that input. And so, for example, neighborhood sources of noise and how to enforce that really came up in the meetings with the community. And so we tried to address that in some of the implementation measures and policies. And that really doesn't have anything to do with the noise contour maps. Those are those local sources of noise and noise problems that get addressed through your noise ordinance and enforcement of that.
Thank you.
I would just like to add an important point of data that was discovered from the noise measurement research that was completed by the Veneklausen and Associates. So if you were to look at the exhibit, figure 3, you could see that when you compare short-term measurement number 12, which is over at the Pleasant Valley Park soccer fields, with short-term measurement number 1, which is over in the Springville specific plan area, you would note that the Springville specific plan area had a reading of 73 dBA, and that was without a berm. And over at the park had a reading of 63 dBA, and that's with the berm. So that demonstrates that the berms are successful impediments to noise. So that was something that came out and has been an important piece of data.
And about 10 points is pretty significant with noise, too, isn't it?
It's actually a doubling of what you would actually really hear in the real world. Yeah, it's very significant.
Yeah. And actually, even more than that. 3 decibels is a doubling of sound energy. So, but the way we perceive noise is very sensitive, and our brain, our ear, and our brain are calibrated to be able to hear very soft to very loud, and we perceive it differently. So, the doubling of sound energy, we don't necessarily perceive it as twice as loud, and so that's why the reason for these logarithmic scales when you get to decibels and all the other measurements of noise and how people actually hear it.
Okay, is there any other questions? Not, what's the pleasure of the council? Wait, first of all, this is a public hearing. So we'll open the public hearing. I have no speaker cards. Does anyone in the audience wish to comment on the revised noise ordinance? Please turn in a card. Okay. Okay.
Hello, City Council, Mayor Little, and staff. I did not plan to speak, except that it seems so incongruous that you would spend all this time and money and effort updating a noise element that shows greater noise impact of the 101 freeway, and yet you go ahead and approve 129 Mission Oaks Townhome project on the Santa Rosa, adjacent to the Santa Rosa off-ramp. This is, of course, in addition to the LA Times article this morning talking about the increased air particulates when you site residential development next to freeways. You talk about the health and well-being of your community and the number of studies that can be done cannot undo what you approve. Why do we do all of these studies and have all of these good intentions when it comes down to you approving these projects? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? If not, we'll close the public hearing, turn it over to council. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion.
I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Yeah.
You know, when I read this and I realize we need to have a sound element as part of our general plan, and obviously after that many years it needs to be updated. But as I was reading it, I kept thinking to myself, how do you use this? And it seems to me that I'm not sure we do in many cases. And I guess it's a question I have, and I guess I'll ask it more as we go along through life here, but it seems to me to be one of those documents that we did spend a lot of time and effort on, and I'm wondering how much we really use it, one, when we're improving new projects, but almost as important is how do we help to reduce what we already have as far as noise. So I hope it's something that we don't just put on a shelf and use it because you have to, but then always say, well, we'll mitigate it this way, we'll mitigate it that way. You know, you really have to use this document to make it worth that time and money. And it's not just a new, it's how do we help reduce the noise for the people that live here. And I think that if we really think about it, we ought to be able to start looking at some projects that could do that. Whether it's more sound walls within the city already, or berms where you could do other berms, you know, and really looking at what we have.
If I may make a comment on that.
Yes.
Where the rubber meets the road after the noise study is the implementation of ordinances to implement the policies of the noise study. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be really important for community development and the rest of us to come forward with new ordinances that implement the findings of the noise study. And that's where you're really going to start to see those differences.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm encouraging that to happen, but not only as it applies to new development, but how it applies to our community that exists today.
Let me, Your Honor, can I respond just a minute? Because we've done some very, very responsible things around the city where things have been zoned, that people own the land and it's zoned for certain purposes. Not changed, it was zoned. The first sound wall was one that I brought to the council way back along the railroad track. If they wanted to put a wall up, well, I knew it was going to bounce the noise right back into the neighborhoods. And I didn't even have to say anything to them because they came forward and says, we don't want that. Well, there's a wall now that what do you call it, gravitates to the sky. It goes at an angle. The noise doesn't bounce. That was a berm. That was the first one, and it works. Folks, it doesn't go into those neighborhoods. The second berm was out at the Village at the Park. If they had not had that berm at Village at the Park, they would have had tremendous amount of noise. So that was the next one to help mitigate, is that what you're talking about? Help mitigate that noise level. This new one, I've been on the hill, I've been down below because I want to hear it myself. And that berm is just taking the noise away, even more so than the other one. It's unbelievable because on the second level of Spanish Hills, I almost bought a home there until I opened the window and went, oh my God, that noise. That noise is not there now because the cars are below that berm. It's cutting all that motor and wheel traffic. If you go down the way where there's no berm, you're going to hear it. So I think and like the lady told me, where's the freeway? When she was walking down below, asking the guys directing traffic because she didn't hear the freeway. That's because it's up here and it's knocking down all the noise. So everything we've done, not only did it help the present stuff being built, but stuff in the past has been built, has now been helped environmentally, taking away that noise. And if we take that berm all the way to the end like we're supposed to, it's going to help the whole Spanish Hills and other area there. It's going to cut their noise. And I think we as a council have taken some very smart actions in trying to mitigate not just what's there, but what's there in the past. Thank you.
You have a question?
No, just a quick comment. That's why I asked, the questions about, what did you find this time that you didn't necessarily find last time? And there has been some great strides, but I think Councilmember McDonald does make a good point in the fact, and Mr. Morgan as well, that, we need to make sure that this is a living document, that it is pertinent and we use it. And as we have the last one that we did before we updated this, and there's all kinds of technologies out there to help us along with this thing, and the earth and the berm was one of them, but there's a lot of other technologies that have been implemented since the last time that we did this too.
Exactly.
I would just say that I came away with reading this document with two thoughts. First is, unlike some communities, we don't have virtually any noise problems except that created by the traffic that goes through the freeway. And the freeway, as we all know, is both a benefit to the community as well as it brings with it the other things of traffic noise. So, and I don't know that the freeway is going to get moved very soon. I think what we're doing with the berms are really, and that new development that was mentioned is going to have sound walls and both within the houses and adjacent to the freeway. So it's something we're going to live with, whether it's at this noise level or some other noise level, because it's going to be there. But it helps the city immensely.
I just have to, if I might, just as a bit of a rebuttal here, if you look at the map, there are actual readings throughout the city that are higher than they are along the freeway. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, the train goes through Camarillo. Was one of the areas, but it was adjacent to a new development. Now, how do we help those that are already there? Maybe the people on the other side, we do something to protect those homes. A lot of it along Las Posas has grown because of just the amount of traffic that travels that road now. And so those are the parts of town where it doesn't have the new development. We can't blame it on the freeway, although you can actually hear the freeway all through town. But I just think we need to really look at other spots and not just think it's all because of...
Well, then we need something other than brick and mortar sound walls in those streets.
Something, I don't know what it is.
Because that's what we have in every major street in this town.
Let me tell you something. There's been other things that have happened in the past. Trucks used to go on Las Posas Road until council said no more trucks unless you're doing business because it made noise. More noise than that. Okay? Because I used to live there next to that. It was bad. We cut trucks out of Camarillo that aren't their own business, cutting across on Las Posas. There's a lot of things you don't realize that the council has done to cut noise, to mitigate noise, not stop it. And we're not recognizing that sometimes. And we keep doing it. We keep finding new ways of doing it every time we turn around.
That's what I'm
saying.
And
so we're going to keep doing that. The city always has, and it will keep doing it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Your Honor, I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the negative declaration number 2015-10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 4-0. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the City of Camarillo 2015 update to the general plan noise?
So moved, Your Honor.
Is there a
I'll second the motion.
There is moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not? Please vote. Motion is carried 4-0. Thank you very much.
Before we go to the next item, I've been traveling around cities in the county. You don't know how much better we are. When you talk to new people coming into our city, they go, we love this city because we're clean, we're livable, and we're a great city to live in. So I want to keep those things in mind when we're talking about negative things about the city. We are seen as a whole different animal in other cities. A city that people like to live in.
Okay, we'll proceed now to resolution determining the validity of proceedings and calling for a special election, annexation number 7, West Camarillo Community Facilities District number 1. Is there a report, staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I have just a few comments, and then I'll ask Mary Ann Goodkind, our legal counsel to West Camarillo CFD number 1, to guide us through this process. The agenda report clearly defines the action that we have tonight. This is annexation number 7. Just by way of history, in 1999, the city formed the West Camarillo Facilities District, sometimes known as CFD number 1, to provide sewer, drainage, and bridge facilities to western Camarillo if and when such area developed. In July of 1998, the district designated certain area as a future annexation area to the district, which allowed for a streamlined annexation process. Under that process, 5 annexations have occurred to date, and then the 6th utilized a modified regular process. At this time, we have the 7th being proposed. The owner of the property, Alacora Springville, is now ready to annex to the district. However, a small portion is outside the future annexation area, which then requires the public hearing and conducting of an election. So with that, Mary Ann's going to guide us through the rest of this process.
Thank you. The modified annexation process tonight includes a public hearing, followed by the calling of an election. The eligible voter has submitted a ballot in which the city clerk, as the election official, will open the ballot, and then we'll ask you to have final actions relating to actually annexing this property into CFD number 1.
Okay. Okay. We'll see. Has the items been published in the paper? Okay. You want to read the...
Do you want to announce this is the time and place for the public hearing?
Sure, this is the time and place for the public hearing.
For annexation number 7, including the proposed levy of special taxes and all other matters discussed in the resolution adopted earlier this evening, you're going to open the public hearing to receive comments, questions, or any oral protests from anybody interested in the audience.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this matter regarding the annexation number 7 to the Community Facilities District. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt a resolution determining the validity of the prior proceedings and call for a special election related to annexation number 7.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Okay. That takes care of all the public hearings. We'll move down to departmental.
Can I? Yeah. The motion carries 4-1 with Councilmember McDonald dissenting.
It's
I'm
3.
Sorry, 3-1.
Sorry, didn't pick that up. Okay, we'll move to departmental. We have resolution canvassing the results of a special election, annexing property, and authorizing the levy of a special tax for fiscal year 2015-16, annexation number 7, West Camarillo Community Facilities District.
At this time, I'm just going to open the ballot.
Okay.
So we have one ballot. It represents 49 votes, and the vote is no. No.
Represents 49 votes for.
What are they going to do with the effluent?
Hmm?
What are they going to do with this stuff? I mean, that's where the drains were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need to take action on the first resolution, which would be declaring the canvass of the election, and the outcome is no. So we'll take action on the first resolution, and we'll not take
Okay.
action on the second resolution.
Should we have a motion to adopt a resolution canvassing the results of the election held within annexation number 7 of the West Camarillo Community Facilities District number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 4-0. And we have a motion to adopt resolution approving annexation number 7 to the West Camarillo Community Facilities District number 1 and authorizing its levy of special tax. And that vote is,
We're not going to take action on that
Okay.
resolution.
given the fact that the vote was negative, we will not take action on this item and it will be placed in the file. And that takes care of the council agenda. We do have a special council meeting. It will take place right away. So if there's nothing to be said for the...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If the council would allow me, and I know there's people, but just real quick, if you would allow me, if we could adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of Ben Kuroki. And let me just tell you about Ben Kuroki. He was a Camarillo citizen. He was 98, and he died the 7th of September. And he was a World War II hero. And I knew Ben, and Ben didn't talk a lot about his war escapades, but he volunteered for our Army in 1941. And I'm not going to read all of this, but he was initially rejected by the recruiters who questioned the loyalty of children of Japanese immigrants. And undetermined, Ben and his brother drove 150 miles and signed up. And he signed up for the United States Air Force. And Ben flew 58 bomber missions over Europe, North Africa, and Japan during the war. And he took part, August 1943, on the raid over Nazi oil fields in Podesta, Romania, that killed 310 of his flyers of his group. And because of his Japanese ancestry, he was initially rejected when asked to serve on a B-29 bomber, but that did not deter Ben, and his members nicknamed him the Most Honorable Son, and the War Department gave him a Distinguished Flying Cross. And he was hailed as a hero and a patriot at a time when thousands of Japanese Americans were confined and internment camps amid fears of a Japanese invasion of the West Coast. And just to end, Ben quoted, and this is obituary, was in the LA Times, "I had to fight like hell for the right to fight for my own country," Kuroki said at the award ceremony in Lincoln, Nebraska, and now I feel vindicated. So if it's okay with the rest of the council members, I'd like to adjourn this meeting in the honor of Ben Kuroki.
I think we'd all be proud to do that. If there's no objections, it's so ordered. Okay, we'll close the council meeting and go to...
Excuse me, Your Honor, we do have some closed session items later, so we should just recess the regular council meeting.
We'll recess the meeting to a closed session at a later time and go to the special council meeting, the purpose of which is to hear one item. But we'll call the meeting to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. And are there any public comments for items that are not on this agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the agenda and we'll have a report.
Your Honor, this is an item to consider proceeding with a hillside safety project above the Camarillo Springs residential area. I'll start by describing the proposed project, and up on the screen is an aerial photograph of the mountain south of the Camarillo Springs area. This is Gitana Street, this is San Como Street, and these two channels are the main channels where most of the debris came down last winter that caused the damage to some of the homes in the community. There's a third channel right here that has a smaller debris shed and didn't have as much debris, had some debris come down between the homes but not cause any significant damage. This is a recent aerial photo which now shows the work that we completed last winter by the National Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS. You can see the kind of the brown or the gray areas here. Those are the debris platforms that have already been constructed. And so the projects that's proposed is to essentially add capacity to the concept that the NRCS originally came up with. The platforms are a leveled out area, so as the channel comes down, the idea is you can see it's a pretty steep terrain along the channel, and as the debris would hit this leveled out area, it would hopefully dissipate the energy from all the rock flow if we were to see a similar rock flow or debris flow like last winter, and that this platform would cause the energy to dissipate and hopefully slow the rock up before it got into the drainage system. That's a good start, but the concern is that that may not have enough capacity or enough of a barrier to stop the flow. So what's being proposed are the 5 red lines are debris barriers. They're basically, to simplify the description, they kind of look like a chain link fence, but it's obviously a much stronger type of barrier. They're very high strength steel rings and cables that would hold in place a wall of this barrier that would then catch the debris at 2 points in the 2 main channels and at 1 point in the smaller channel, and catch the debris and hold it and keep it from flowing beyond the platform. So it increases the capacity significantly. And so therefore is being proposed also, not only is it effective as a project, but it's something that can be implemented fairly quickly, knowing that we do want to move forward with something that can be in place as soon as possible before we get into the rainy season. So again, just to kind of summarize, we're looking at a total of 5 barriers. They're called debris barriers, and they total estimated $1.2 million. That would be both the cost of materials and the construction or the implementation of the project. We're estimating the materials to be about $400,000 and then the construction work to be about $800,000. To try and accelerate the schedule and move as quickly as possible, we're proposing to do something a little different than the way we normally would award a contract, and that is to break it into 2 parts. Normally we would just go out to bid, hire a contractor, and any materials that they would need, we would expect them to order those materials. That would have been included in their bid, obtain those, and take responsibility to make sure they're delivered in proper condition. That puts the risk on the developer, the builder, or the contractor that's going to construct the improvements. But in this case, we're going to take on the risk, or propose to take on the risk, and actually order the materials separately under a separate contract. What that does is it allows us to immediately order the materials and get them on their way to be delivered, and not wait till we go through a bid process to hire a contractor to do the construction. So we parallel up the work and save time. And I'll talk about schedule in a minute. So I'll talk about the 2 separate efforts, starting with the purchase of the materials. There's different ways to provide debris barriers. There are some manufacturers or contractors out there that will design and per spec build the barrier, bringing materials on site, and then essentially building the barrier on site. There's a problem with that. One is that they're building something that isn't tested. It's anticipated on how it would work, but there's no actual testing of it prior to any type of debris flow. Secondly, it takes quite a while to design and then construct something of that nature because it's all being assembled per spec. However, there's one company out there, and their name is GeoBrugg, GeoBrugg AG, GeoBrugg AG. And they actually prefab segments of the device so that they can, one, test it. They actually have put these in place and tested them, and they're high strength, and they're built each segment is built the same, so you know if it's withstood a test in one, in one environment, that it's expected to perform the same in a new environment with a new product or a new assembly. So we have these devices that we have a higher degree of confidence in because they've been tested. Second benefit is they can be delivered more quickly because they're already partially assembled in segments, and then the remainder is assembled on site. But because they're already partially assembled, it takes a much shorter period of time to package them up and get them delivered. We don't have a delivery schedule yet, but the suggestion would be, or the recommendation is, that we go ahead and as one contract initiate a sole source purchase to purchase the materials. The specifications for those are hopefully going to be completed by next Monday. So once we have that information, we would be able to immediately put the order in for the materials. That would give, and I'll go through the next phase, the bid process in more detail in a minute, but that second phase would take about 3 weeks. So if we can get the materials delivered within 3 weeks, and there's a possibility that they can meet that schedule, we haven't confirmed it yet, we're still working with the supplier, but if they can have those delivered within 3 weeks, then by the time a bid process would be completed, the materials would be on site, and then the builder or the contractor would not have to wait for materials to be delivered. They'd be ready to go. So again, we're proposing that we would purchase the materials as a sole source purchase, again, for a couple reasons. They're the only manufacturer that has prefab segments that have been tested to know their strength and the performance expectations, and also they're the only supplier that can meet the type of deadline that we need to meet in order to implement these devices in a timely manner. So then talking about the second parallel effort, that would be to go through a bid process to hire a contractor. There are multiple contractors that can do this work, and so therefore that would not be a sole source project. So we would go through a bid process. The minimum bid period that we're required under the government code to follow is a 15-day period from when we advertise and notice the bidding or the contract community to when we would open the bids. So what we're proposing is that we would advertise this Sunday to begin the bid process if you grant authority for us to proceed, and that would start the 15-day clock. We would receive the bids and open them on September 28th, and there would be two considerations we'd have to look at that time. Once we open bids, one consideration is what we normally have to do is we have to go through and review the bids to make sure they are in order, that they have submitted something that a bid proposal that meets all of our specifications, that everything's in order, and that we have proper bids. And we would have to do obviously a very quick review of that to determine if that's adequate. So that would be one test. The second would be we do have multiple parties that we've been working together with determining on going forward with this project, and there would need to be an agreement in place reaching certain terms with all of the parties. And I think at this point I'll turn this over to Mr. Perrick, who could explain a little more what that item would be that we'd have to feel comfortable with in order to bring a recommendation back to you.
Certainly. What we would need to do, obviously, is to be able to gain access to the properties to construct the improvements. And so that's one of a number of different issues that need to be addressed. We have had discussions with the parties, and thus far we have not yet reached an agreement, but we intend to continue to have those discussions, and hopefully we'll be able to return to you with that agreement prior to the time that you award the contract.
So then if I could wrap up, Roy, with the there's two separate motions we would ask you to make if you agree with the recommendation. The first motion would be to authorize us to proceed with purchasing the materials and appropriating $400,000 to cover that purchase. Another motion, or a second motion, would be to authorize us to advertise for bidding, and then at the time we would bring, if everything's in order with the bids and we have an agreement, at the time we would bring that to you We would at that time also seek, because at that point we'll know our cost, we would seek the appropriation necessary to cover those costs as well as award the contract. If everything's in order when we open bids on the 28th, our hope would be to try and get a item in front of you, perhaps in a special meeting as quickly as possible, because the next council meeting wouldn't be until October 14th, and we would lose 2 weeks. We're not proposing to pin down a schedule tonight, but we'll work with you to try and develop a time as soon as possible after the 28th to be able to schedule a special meeting if we're ready to go and have a contract ready to present to you. So be happy to answer any questions.
Tom, is the number 400,000 or is it 800,000?
There are two separate numbers. So for the item tonight, where we're seeking authority to do a sole source purchase, that's the $400,000, and that's the appropriation that we're seeking tonight. The other $800,000 is our anticipated or estimated cost for the bid construction that we would bring back to you as a separate contract, and that's only an estimate. The actual amount will be appropriated at that time, but that's how we get to the total estimated project cost of $1.2 million. The materials are $400,000, the construction is $800,000, together $1.2 million.
So we would be adopting a motion that would authorize the staff to invite bids for the construction of the improvements, and we'd have another one, a motion to authorize sole purchase and approve appropriation of $400,000?
Correct.
Instead of $800,000 that's on the agenda.
That's correct.
I have one more
Yes,
question, Your
go
Honor. I know you showed us pictures of what this thing looks like before. You don't happen to have one with you today? Sorry.
No, this was kind of a last minute with everything else going on today. We just, I don't have anything I can put up on the screen.
Really large, so that as the debris or whatever comes down, they just build up behind them.
Exactly, and maybe I'll make.
And I guess my question gets down to, in this process of building it, we will construct something that enables them to come out and clean them up, whoever that might be.
Yes.
That's part of the process to.
Yeah, the idea is that there are going to be some fixed parts of this structure, columns that are buried. And you're right, in some cases this is going to be 20 feet high, a wall basically 20 feet high. Those columns, those metal columns will go about 20 feet into the bedrock or into the soil at least to create a real solid anchor. So those are fixed and those won't move. However, the mesh or the screen, the fencing that's put up in between it and anchored and there's cables that hold it in place, those can be detached and it can be moved aside for easy access to clean out the debris.
So I think that's, I think that's important for people to understand how big and massive this is when you talk about spending this much money and you describe it as mesh. Well, it really isn't just mesh. It's this.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to just pick it. For somebody looking up, it'll look like from a distance almost like a really heavy-duty chain link fence, but it's not just. You're right. It's very high strength, and what may look from a distance like a little chain link, you get up close to it, might be a 3-foot round, this foot thick metal.
We have seen pictures of this. Staff provided them to us to show us what they look like when they get full. It's amazing. It's like getting a fish net and catching everything and letting it roll up, but it's much bigger. So it's a pretty awesome thing to do when you catch all that stuff up there.
Tom, you've got five red lines. Is that going to be 5 nets that we're talking about?
Correct.
So it's going to be not only at the base where the hillside was leveled this past year, but it's also going to be up above, at least on 2 of them, to try to catch it before it even gets to the base level. Is that right?
Correct. The 2 main debris flows were in what's labeled channels 2 and 3, and those also have the biggest platforms. So the 1, 2, and 3 are the platforms where we would also have, and the platform, again, to describe it, is just a level area. So it's basically, think of a bathtub with 3 sides to it, but one side missing. we're going to put the fourth side up and create a bathtub, which is now a basin that we can contain the debris rather than just let it flow across. So that's the idea of putting the 3 down below. The 2 further up the channels not only will catch additional debris, but one of their primary functions is, if you can kind of picture the slope of the channel, and then you have a wall, when it fills up, you create a level area, and that level area acts the same as the platforms down below. It starts to take the energy out of the flow further up the hill, and that even reduces the forces further. That if the flow does continue on, at least reduces the forces. So when they do reach the bigger platforms, some of the energy has already been dissipated.
All right, we have a couple cards that people would like to speak on this. First one is Ted Elliott.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Thank you. My first comment is I'd like to thank you for the effort that's been shown here tonight for what's planned and hopefully will be completed. I'm concerned about the new erosion channel that's between number 2 and 3 up there. There was no discussion of that. I had heard or seen something where there might be a proposed berm to go up there. And if that's the case, I'm curious how that berm compares to the berm along the freeways that we've talked about earlier for soundproofing. Would it be the same size? Is it smaller? Hopefully you're talking about something up in that area, because currently there is nothing to protect the homes along San Como just to the west of number 2 up there. If that new erosion channel breaks loose, which you can see slightly in that picture. I live on the corner of San Como and that drainage ditch that comes down from number 3. Currently there are K-rails up there, which I have been told by numerous sources, including NRCS and Hollingsworth, that they will do absolutely nothing except dump debris into my yard. I was able to luckily get by the first debris flow last year, but right now I'm on the low end of those K-rails, and if something's not done, I'm very concerned that that's going to be a problem. So I would, if in fact there's a berm plan and how that would work, I would very much appreciate hearing about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have an answer for you after we hear the next person, which is Mr. Phil Eads.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff. I guess I'm basically having the same questions that Mr. Elliott just alluded to. Our address is 6416, and if you look at that graphic up there, we are the 3rd house up from the corner, which basically is where the erosion channel dumps into. And of course, once it gets into our yard and down, it's just going to flow right down the street, down toward Mr. Elliott's place. And of course, right now, given the fact that our entire backyard is, the hardscape has been destroyed, the walls are gone, that's just going to come straight down and just transition right down the hill into the backyards going down. So frankly, I'm a little disappointed, frankly a lot disappointed. When we were here last meeting, there was discussion of the berm. I support berms. I like berms. I heard berms talked about before in a very positive light relative to noise. I guess what happened to the berm? We were talking about a berm 2 weeks ago, and now we don't have a berm proposed here. The disappointing thing for me is that what is being proposed here, and don't get me wrong, I support spending the money and getting this done. There's a lot of people at risk here. Unfortunately, this does nothing for myself or our property, our neighbor, and Mr. Elliott. We need something done with the Young Erosion Channel. It is not going to go away by itself. And again, when we were here 2 weeks ago, I thought we were on a path to get something done there. I think the reality is that you can talk about $2 million or $1.2 million or whatever you're talking about in terms of expenses, and balancing that with the cost of the berm. I'm not an expert in this area, but we're talking about grading and doing some other things like that that I don't think are costly in the context of what we're talking about here. And you're right now we've got 3 homes there at a minimum, and probably more if we get more rain, that are at risk. So I would be very interested in hearing about the berm that was discussed at the last meeting, and I respectfully request that that be addressed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Who wishes to address those questions? One is the K-rail, and the other one is the Young Erosion Channel.
Your Honor, starting then with the K-rail, that is something that is fairly quick to address in a design manner. So what we're doing again, and we're managing this much differently than we would a normal capital project, where we have a designer come out, study everything, design everything, survey everything, and then go to bid, and then construct, and that's a 12-month process. Dr. Kane is the expert that we brought in to help us come up with a solution. Also, one of his skills is figuring out how to design and study and construct almost together at the same time to keep this moving, because the goal is to try and achieve, if at all possible, having these completed by November, and if not December at the latest. In fact, the HOA's own geotechnical expert, as we were meeting in mediation, came in and commented they've never seen an agency move this quickly. I'm sorry, I can't. I think that's something they would share publicly. They were comfortable with our approach, and were very impressed with how quickly we were moving, and shared that. So as part of that, though, and the reason I'm explaining that is that's a detail that when Dr. Kane comes out again next week, because he's still working on design and will be even on site during construction to work out details, that we're having him look at: do we extend the K-rail? Do we fill in gaps in the K-rail? How do we treat that as a design detail while the construction is occurring? So it's almost in that sense a design build, but we still know the K-rail is an issue, and we're still planning to address that. I just don't have the answer for you tonight on that detail. Now, as far as the Young Erosion area, that's a little different. That is something that again, Dr. Kane, we have him focusing on the highest need, and there's an evaluation that looked at where the greatest risks were, and that was where the debris flows occurred, channels 2 and 3 primarily. That's where we're trying to keep his focus, is to manage that project and get that implemented. The geotechnical engineer for the HOA brought up that they have certain ideas on how the Young Erosion area should be treated. I think a lot of the we have our own geotechnical engineer we had hired before. We have even Dr. Kane, who's looked in on it, and they all agree that there's really 2 parts to the Young Erosion area as far as addressing it. There's what's referred to as RILs, and I've been accused of not pronouncing that correctly. My Midwest accent, reels or rills. But what they are little valleys that are starting to form, and what that does is concentrate the water. So imagine you have a flat surface, water sheet flows across it. It doesn't have as much velocity or as much force to carve away and loosen up the debris. As those rills start to form, they're little channels that could up to 2 feet deep now that will concentrate the water, and that water then will start to dislodge and cause debris. So the highest benefit and highest need is to grade that Young Erosion area to fill in basically those rills, flatten it out, take the energy out of the water, the rain and water that would hit during a rainy season. The city's proposing in that case that we will not burden Dr. Kane with also trying to survey and design that as a separate effort, because that will detract and take time away from the highest need areas. So there's a separate design effort that would be needed, and a construction effort to do the grading, because that would be a separate type of work that the contractors that would install these devices, they install the devices, they don't do necessarily grading. So it should be managed as a separate effort. We, again, being very careful not to get too into the details from the mediation, but we have basically said that we would pay for mitigating and filling in the reels, but the design and the construction would be managed by somebody else, the HOA or whoever. They can do it just as quickly, perhaps even faster, not have to pay prevailing wage. Well, if we pay for it, they probably will, but we would pay for it, but let them manage it. That can be a parallel effort, and that's still up for discussion. But it's not the item before you tonight, because either way, that's not what we would attach to this project. It would be a separate project.
So essentially, the answer is we're getting the most difficult and the most dangerous portions of the work underway as quickly as we can, and these others will follow, as perhaps by the city, perhaps by others, as the answers get.
They could follow. That's still being negotiated.
All right. I hope that answers some questions out there. Seems like there's another. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Ron Kester at 6329 Gatana in Camarillo Springs. First of all, I just wanted to thank all of you for your efforts, for your diligence and your persistence, and even your patience. I know that sometimes we're not the easiest group to work with. Okay, and in looking at what's been proposed, I would ask the council to authorize it. I think it is what is the optimal solution right now. It addresses the highest risk elements. It is something that the scope can be addressed within the time period that is given at the parameters of cost. So it's not maximum. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could do, but given the time that we have to do it in before the rainy season starts, I think it is the optimum thing which we can do now. Okay. Again, I wanted to thank you. And as far as the access and the negotiations, now I'm not part of the mediation or negotiations or anything, but I do work for a governmental agency up north, County of San Luis Obispo, and I know in a lot of our negotiations regarding access to land, there is a time for negotiations and there's a time for discussions, and then there's a time for direct action. And you have the governmental authority to enforce the remediation of a nuisance, which that land has been declared. And so I would ask that we not get bogged down in negotiations with a landowner for access, that because of the short time period required, that if that access approval is not forthcoming, that we start our governmental actions. I know that's kind of bringing a bureaucracy into account, but sometimes that bureaucracy brings the weight of the government behind it, and that moves the, quote, negotiations a bit smoother. Okay. Again, thank you very much. I'd like to especially thank city staff and city management for all of the work that they've done, for sticking with it to find a solution. You know, it's been almost a year. There's been lots of discussion. There's been lots of back and forth, and I think the solution that is being proposed within the time period that we have to do it is the optimal solution, and I would ask the City Council to approve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Tom, did you have anything you want to say?
Again, I will just comment without getting into detail on the negotiations that a lot of times you hear negotiation, you do think that it's a delay versus a benefit to the schedule. In this case, I see it as a benefit. I think we all, the parties, see it as a benefit because all of us have the same goals to figure out a way to move something forward quickly. If we were to have to use our police powers and move forward with any of those remedies, I can tell you that could be months through a court process. The idea is if we can get cooperation, and I can tell you as far as access, that seems to be one of the items that is not a hurdle, and we should be able to get the access we need.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that I authorize the staff to invite bids for the construction of improvements.
Second. Moved and seconded. I just have a comment. I think about 2 or 3 months ago, after some arduous discussions around here, that several of us commented that council was in this thing to the end, and we were going to stay with it and get it done. And I know there's some that were concerned about the time and everything else, but believe me, this is more than just rushing out and spending millions of dollars of money and have some problems at the end of the day. So we've done it. I think we've done it the right way. I personally commend the staff for staying with it and finding ways to solve this problem. It's going to cost over, as you can tell, over $1 million or more, and we're prepared to handle that, but we appreciate your understanding that not all of it can be done in a single stroke. It's going to take some time, and we're after the big issues right now, and we'll move on to the next ones after that. So with that, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion? Please vote. That motion carries 4-0. So,
Your Honor, I'd like to authorize a sole purchase for the debris material, barrier materials, and approve an appropriation of $400,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion? Not? Please vote. Motion is carried 4-0. So that's done. And we will now recess to a closed session. Thank you very much.